Good evening. I just want to start with saying there is an arrogance in outright dismissing the possibility of other life forms. But the real issue isn't whether UFOs exist themselves. Of course, we know objects fly. Of course, we know they're unidentified. And I think that's beyond debate. So we're past that point here. The question is, what are they? And for decades, your taxpayer dollars have funded investigations into all of these sightings all the time. But yet the big secret keepers, the government, please ignorance. They're like, we don't know what things are. We don't know what it is. But why is it we have this lack of transparency? That is the question. As I wear my shirt, how is never as important as the why. You always want to know why things are happening, not how they're happening. Now, we can say, Roderick, it could be national security threats. Well, I watched enough movies, and so have you. When there's a national security threat, it is shared with the public so we can all go through this together, right? Because it is all of us in this thing. But what exactly requires what I call this level of secrecy that we're having here? And it can't merely be advanced technology, because whoever got the best technology is going to flex it, right? And there's no strategic advantage in keeping that a secret because we're in a preventive mode. We don't want anyone just coming over here and doing things, or anywhere. It doesn't matter. But history shows us that we have to take control of things ourselves as we the people. And supposedly that is what we're going to have tonight. So we got Steve Bassett tonight. Now, this is somebody who I know has some information behind the curtains. You talking about somebody being in it, in the trenches, then we're going to have this tonight. And here's a special part of this. Once we finish talking, him and I having our conversation, then you are going to be able to ask as many questions as you want, because it's all about us, you, the people. And he's here for us today to do this. And so let me give you a little background. Stephen Bassett has been a political activist. I mean, he's been doing this a while. Disclosure advocate and executive director of the Paradigm Research Group. It's called PRG. Now, he founded this in 1996, and this was all put together to end the government imposed embargoes on the truth behind extraterrestrial-related response, this phenomenon that we have out here. Now, he's spoken to audiences across the world about the implication of disclosure. So y'all got to know that. He's lectured around the world of political implications of UAP and phenomena, given over 1,200 radio and television interviews. And then he's been covered internationally on CNN, Fox News, MCNB, or MSNBC. You all know who I'm talking about, in the Washington Post and New York Times. And so I'm going to get my man here with us right now. Stephen, what's going on? Glad to have you.
Too much going on, Roderick. Too much, can't handle it.
Too much going on. Okay, I'm with you on that. I think people don't really realize what is happening. I think we need to, as people, pay more attention to this government hearings and what's going on. And I'm still baffled of the lack of public interest when you guys go down here and put on this congressional hearings and everything else. And so, first of all, kudos to you, all the years that you put into this and how far that we have come today, especially as we march down this road. And the question would be, will we ever have disclosure, period?
Oh, well, let me answer it this way. In my top 10 movies of all time, possibly in the top 5. Okay. Is Gladiator.
That's
I know that a lot of people share that with me. And Gladiator is one of the great opening of any movie, period. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And that was obvious from day one. And so those who saw it, remember the opening of the film, they're the legion, the Roman legions are out there. They're about to take on a German tribe, one of the last tribes, right, hanging on to that territory up north. And the battle is about to begin, and the horde is up there in the trees, and they're beating their breast and they're screaming and yelling, you know. And General Maximus's top lieutenant Quintus turns to him and says, "People should know when they're conquered." And Maximus says, "Would you, Quintus? Would I?"
Yeah.
Now, why do I bring up Gladiator here? Well, because I love the movie. It's a great movie. Here's a simple point. The truth embargo is basically done. It's done. It's been defeated. And the government at least those devoted to it, those that have managed it inside, don't know that they've been conquered. They don't know that they've lost, but they have lost. So, and I get it. Would I know that? If I had invested 73 years as part of my life serving my country and all they went through, and maybe not the sole thing they did, but surely something they considered a very important thing, whether they're working on the issue or part of the truth embargo itself or whatever, they're serving the country's national security. And now, after that policy has gone on for so long, it's about to end. And it's like, we don't want to declare defeat here. I get it. I understand. Plus, there's also the fact that there's going to be a whole lot of, I don't know, awkwardness. This thing ends. I mean, it would have been the same for the German horde if they had said, look, it's over. Let's don't run down the hill and get slaughtered. Let's just, surrender. But there's going to be a lot of blowback from that. Maybe they'll execute us anyway or whatever. So I get it. Would I? But it doesn't matter. The truth embargo is done. The only thing that hasn't happened is for the leader, who in the film Gladiator was killed right there in the battle, for the leader to come forward and confirm it and accept it. And I don't want the government to come running down the hill and be slaughtered by what's the Roman legions of the modern metaphor. It's the internet. It is the vast social media complex on this planet that includes hundreds of millions of people. And their interest in this subject is far greater than most people know, but will know. The presence of the UAP issue, ET issue, UAP issue, and all of that on the net is vast. Has been for a very long time. And it's more advanced now. It's just a presence. It's an active, organic, living thing with podcasts and hashtags and TikTok and videos and people that are doing journalism like you're doing right now and doing it probably as well as they were doing it back in the 50s for lots of money on TV, right? We got the tech, we got the skills. All of that is the equivalent of that horde, and they can't defeat it. It's over. And now the question is, can they lose with some grace? And also, can we be graceful in victory? Which could be harder at times. I mean, that's my plan. That's what I'm suggesting.
Well,
so that's my answer in terms of where are we right now. Basically, we're in the last stage of the end of the truth embargo. It's been defeated, and now we just got to wrap it up, right, and finish it off. And that requires, of course, an announcement from the president.
Well, I mean, if we do use the metaphor of Gladiator, the mob controlled everything then, right? It made, them not to, get rid of Maximus. They couldn't do it because of the mob. But our mob don't have that power, or do we?
Well, let's wait a minute now. Society is complex. The mob had the power in the arena, right? In the entertainment, the arena, the Coliseum. In that zone, and that was orchestrated. In other words, the emperor is still there, and he's live, die, whatever. But that was a democratic aspect of it, right? They were a democracy in that moment. But we want him to live, we want him to die, and then the emperor makes the final decision. But that's not what was going on in that battlefield up north in the German territories. No, that was a different matter. And in terms of, the final act of disclosure, that is going to be very much not the mob. That's a term that I don't think it's appropriate, but the people with the internet as their vehicle, their sword, their shield, the whole 9 yards, will basically go. Except we know what the answer is. It's live, truth. Yeah. They will ultimately force the action, and even if the president, standing in as the head of that horde, would rather not, the internet will say no. It would be in your best interest to do the right thing. I think he will. So I think the metaphor holds up. All right. So why? What's going on? I feel for people I feel for the young kids. Well, actually, I don't feel for I envy them because they're so damn young. Thing is that they don't know much about the history. They're not that keen on the issue, particularly the Gen Zs, and so they're not following it. And so they're probably thinking it's interesting, but they don't. You're not getting the gravitas of the moment. That's how it is with children. I get that, young kids. The millennials, yeah, they're sort of getting it, right? The younger millennials still not quite there. The Gen X and the baby boomers, of course, we're hip deep in it, and more importantly, we're the ones that did the truth embargo. The World War II and World War I were fought by the greatest generation. Their children took over the truth embargo, which was handed to them by the greatest generation, by Truman, by Ramey, by Eisenhower, and then managed it for all these decades. Right? Gen X took over, and so it's not inappropriate that the Gen Xers and the Gen Zs, I'm a Gen Z, the Gen Xers and the baby boomers, should end it. And basically, that's what's going on. The people on the Hill that are debating that bill, Chuck Schumer, the super activist justice warrior Danny Sheehan, we're all about the same age. We're baby boomers, and we're trying to get this done. But we have a lot of support in doing it. And so what has happened is that in the last 3 years, it's 3 years because the legislation that just passed is for next year, we've had 4 consecutive tranches of legislation in one of our most significant bills, the National Defense Authorization Act, addressing the UAP issue. Not just addressing it, but working it, changing it, modifying in order to make it as appropriate as possible. Prior to these 4 bills, nothing was ever in our legislation on this issue. Period. Nothing. Zero. In fact, there was nothing to legislate because there were no ETs. There was no crash vehicles. None of that. It was all just a misunderstanding. And now we've had 4 in a row, backed by not just any committee, the most important, perhaps, and powerful committee in Congress, the Senate Intelligence Committee, also one of the most nonpartisan committees, not headed, but in the same party as the Senate Majority Leader Schumer, who is one of the Gang of 8, one of the 8 members of Congress that have certain very much special access. And he just stepped into this just back in July. Prior to that, though, the sponsors included Gillibrand and Rubio and Warner and Reid. And I think there were 5 senators, I don't know the exact ones, some of those and others, that were sponsors to this bill. Every one of the Senate Intel Committee, that's 17, I think, have signed letters, all of them signed letters, I think one to Arrow, one to the White House, saying, well, this is important, do this, do that, whatever. I don't know the details. It's just the basics that matter. So we're at a place that if you know this issue, it's the mountaintop. We have climbed to the mountaintop, and we can see the other side. It's taken a long time, and it's taken so long. It's like running a marathon or a triathlon. I did that. I did the Ironman triathlon. It takes so long that you just don't think it's ever going to end. And when you finally see the finish line, you're like, really? No kidding. I mean, there's a finish line. I had no idea. So that's not all that's happened. I mean, I can just tick off the unprecedented things that have happened, and because of the power of the truth embargo and all the money and effort and brilliance that went into the propaganda behind it, right? And the cleverness within a very democratic country with a Bill of Rights and so forth. Yeah, it's a marvel of construction that they pulled it off for 76 years is unbelievable. It's really extraordinary. And so all of that is coming to an end. And just to talk about some of the other things that have happened is the amount of coverage on the media, which has always been there from day one, going all the way back to 1947. It would take a lot of money to truly archive the full media coverage. I would put it at maybe 30,000 to 40,000 professional journalistic articles about the phenomena. That's a lot of coverage. But as you approach the modern era, the coverage starts growing and growing and growing. And in the last 3 years since they started this legislative process, I think I've logged in something like 5,000 articles, triage from 10,000 articles, meaning stuff that's just not strong enough journalism, just not strong enough platform, but just the good stuff. 5,000 articles. And this year it's going to be 1,900, which is 3 times last year and the most ever. And that's just English language press. No foreign press, because I can't search that. God knows how many articles have been written this year on this subject worldwide, all languages. Could be 6, 8, 10,000. I don't know. Again, people that don't know the past don't realize how profound that is. And by the way, of these 1,900 articles, which you can find on my website, paradigmresearchgroup.org, under resources, under print media archive, I think out of 1,800, there's 5 or 6 that diminish the subject. Maybe a little ridicule, some skepticism. 5 or 6 out of 1,800. Again, this is the kind of stuff that when you put it in a nice pile, the answer is simple. The truth embargo has been conquered. Now it's just a question of, throwing in the towel, accepting defeat with grace. And I can go on and on and on. The number of people that have come, and then of course, the Grush phenomena, which was not part of the scenario, but still it happened, and there's reasons why it happened. And he accelerated the pace, took a big risk, but he made it, and history will reward him generously. But he was really the first person in the right way, from the right position, to come forward and say there's non-human tech here, which is basically informal confirmation. It's, non-human tech means alien tech, extraterrestrial tech, and non-human bodies doesn't mean whales and porpoises. It means ETs. Yeah. And he says, we got them. I've had it confirmed by a number of people, and I talked directly to people that are working on the project. Boom. Informal disclosure. That was in July. Since then, he's gone on a number of shows and repeated it. He repeated it under oath, something like 50 days later, in front of the subcommittee of the House. And that has been also referenced by others. He has not been repudiated. He has not been called a liar by the Pentagon. In fact, they just grudgingly got along with it. He's still getting some threats, but when you take that path, it's risky. I think he'll be okay. But that's happened, right? And then 39 days later, after Grush does something that people didn't see coming and says, it's been confirmed to me in my job working for the UAP task force. I just wasn't some passerby, or just somebody called up. I'm actually in the task force. They're supposed to talk to me. After he confirms that in the interview to Ross Coulthard on News Nation, 39 days later is when Chuck Schumer comes forward and says, we've added 50 more pages. And this is 50 pages of single space doc, PDF, right? That stuff, yeah. 50 more pages, and it's got all this stuff in it. And people are going, what? Where was Chuck? Chuck has been standing outside of this all this time. Suddenly he turns up as the Senate Majority Leader, says, I'm putting legislation in. This is not typical. He's a powerful man. He's also partisan in the sense that if you're the Senate Majority Leader, you are partisan. You're the Majority Leader of the Democrats. Okay, in a sense, by democratic rule. And so he comes forward. No, we're going for the whole thing. I'm throwing a pass into the end zone. Going to win the game right here. And the bill has got huge powers that gives the government the ability to ensure that this all will come out in a controlled and reasonable way, with the powers to make sure it happens regardless of the resistance within the truth embargo. And they've got all these things in there. It's all looking fantastic. And of course, the thing that was most notable about it and what got the most press, which caught a lot of people by surprise. I mean, most people have not yet figured out how historical this was, but that's history's job. Okay. But they'll catch up.
Right.
He said the United States government has eminent domain of all that non-human tech that David Grush was referring to, and the bodies. And a lot of people forget he mentioned the bodies.
I said that too, because when he said, we found craft that was abandoned. And I was like, did anybody hear that? That means whatever it is walking around too. It's like.
He also mentioned they had biologics, which meant bodies, which meant ETs. And so Schumer basically is saying, this is a big deal. That's from elsewhere. And so we have paid huge sums of money to these contractors to work on this tech, study this tech, development, whatever. God knows what they've created. And that's good. They did their job. They got paid. But hey, They're corporations. They serve their shareholders. And so they have been patiently keeping that work private, keeping it secret, doing what they can, but they weren't going to be able to, trot it on out and announce this massive project they're going to do. They're going to make $1 zillion and the stock price will go straight up. They couldn't do that because that would end the truth embargo. So they've been patiently waiting for the big payoff. And then all of a sudden, Schumer shows up and says, no, we own it.
We own it.
Now, what he's really saying, eminent domain, which is misunderstood. Eminent domain means the government has the right to take it.
Yes.
The government could yield it up at any time. But if it wants it, it can get it by law. That's how it works. So the government might choose not to take some of that tech and say, oh, Lockheed, make some money. Enjoy yourself. Or it might take it back and then decide how to develop it, time Lockheed or one of these other companies into it. Everybody wins. But the idea of eminent domain is that something is of such great value that it first and foremost must serve the public good and not just a private corporation or a partnership or an individual.
We know that.
So that hit the military intelligence complex and the truth embargo like a bomb. Boom. And they went, holy mackerel. The legislation didn't do that. The other legislation was pretty cool. It was making progress, set up an organization here, little thing here, little thing that, couple of briefings. And they're going, it's good. And then he hits them with this. And he knew exactly what he was doing. This is chess at the highest level. Oh, I want to meet Chuck Schumer so bad. I can't stand it.
But I got a question for you, though. Pause right there.
Sure.
So, I'm going to say a statement and then I have a question. Because one of the things that concerns me the most is we can talk about this intimate domain. All right, something falls from the sky. Our government goes retrieve it. Then we go over to Lockheed and we say, hey, we're going to give you this thing. And okay, make sure you put it over there because now FOIA X can't work. Access it.
Well, look, that's a little off. In other words, I understand that FOIA does not apply to corporations, so that is a collateral benefit.
Okay.
This is what they do, right? They give technology to these companies and say, make us a nuclear submarine.
Make us pay for it too.
And we pay for it, right? Yeah. And therefore it's ours. Though they may get some benefits because in developing this nuclear submarine, they learn some things. They work that out. But this is way more important than a nuclear submarine. So this is what they do. There's access to certain types of thinking and engineering and everything else. It's not purely in government hands. And so they farm it out to defense contractors. It wasn't to get out from the FOIA per se. That was simply an extra benefit, right? And so, they did what is not unusual, except again, this is a big deal, and he declared eminent domain. And the two things he accomplished in that one announcement on July the 14th, mark that date. History is going to focus on that date. He confirmed Grush, so that all the speculations and pushback against Grush became negative. I mean, negated. In other words, if David Grush made this up in order to get some media attention, and there's really no ET tech, why in the hell would I be declaring eminent domain on it? I mean, that I'm not that stupid.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah.
So that clearly it's true. So he confirms Grush. He's got him covered because that was a problem. Okay, and he used that to go ahead and finally punch the truth embargo maintainers in the nose and make them make a decision.
But Schumer, Bassett, unlike yourself, they're in this government capacity. They took an oath to protect the sovereignty of the United States. So although they're pushing for this, couldn't the big secret keepers who are called, up above, can they just come and say, okay, guys, stop. What you're about to open up the door is national security. Now you're not representing the people no more. You got to protect the oath that you took for the country and shut up and go home.
Well, that's been going on for years, and it's probably a little bit going on for the last 4 or 5 years, right? And both sides probably had a feeling that they might prevail in the end, but it was generally under control. But clearly, starting in 2017, many people inside the military intelligence complex realized it was pretty much over. It was just a matter of how long. And so this is going back and forth and going back and forth. But it wasn't too upsetting. I mean, we were thrilled, right?
Yeah.
And you could see the writing on the wall, but still, even the three tranches of legislation, which did a lot, set up this and that, and I know why they did it. We'll talk about that. This was different. This wasn't just setting up some more infrastructure. He punched them in the nose. He wanted to deliberately flush them out, and that's exactly. And they had no choice. They had to push back. I mean, really push back. And so what happens, of course, is that in the period between July the 14th, when he announces that whole bill and all of its power, plus, of course, eminent domain, the people inside the contractor world who have this massive vested interest and desires to make money, and people within the military intelligence complex, purely on the basis of they believe the truth embargo should last indefinitely. They truly believe that the national security will be damaged by this. I disagree, but they have a right to an opinion. But they work for the state, and so this was their opportunity. They had to make a decision. They knew that if they did not respond, it was ball game, and so they joined in. And what you had was a real pushback that was clearly obvious. It was in the open. We knew who was doing it. I mean, we didn't know the people in the contractor world that were doing it, but they dealt with intermediaries who then dealt with the members of the Congress. And they went after those members of the Congress that had the most power to really go at this bill, serious power, which meant they were going to have to expend a lot of political capital. And who did they go after? They went after powerful Republicans who get millions of dollars in campaign funding from defense contractors and who have positions regarding national security. And who is that? Mike Rogers, chairman of the House Armed Services, and Mike Turner, chairman of the House Intel Committee. And then for good measure, they threw in Mike Thompson, the speaker, and I called them the Three Miketeers. Then they got the support of the Senate minority leader, who I think was not in there, I think, so much on behalf of the contractors making money. I think he was representing more of the defense and national security position on it. So Mitch McConnell got in, and so it was a serious battle. And I know something about what went on, but I wasn't there. But I think this was a very, very intense, one of the most intense conference sessions on any bill, reconciliation of any bill, maybe in the history of Congress. And I hope to God it was recorded. I hope there is a clear record of everything that was said in those meetings, because that was history at an extraordinarily high level. And they got what they wanted. They stripped all the power from the bill, but they kept the concept, so that the concept, which is a wonderful concept, going to get everything out, going to eventually show it to you, going to put it in the archives, but they made it, they gave pretty much the national security structure the ability to pretty much still call the shots, assuming that that bill remained the legislative marker, okay? And it doesn't have to be. It could change tomorrow, but they couldn't take that chance. And so everybody saw it. I mean, it was being covered. These are the defense contractors, through the people that they support with their donations, Turner and others, fighting back against the eminent domain on non-human technology. So Grush has confirmed the ET presence. Schumer has confirmed the ET presence. Turner has confirmed it. Rogers has confirmed it. McConnell basically has confirmed it. The defense contractors have confirmed it. Who hasn't confirmed the extraterrestrial presence? That's when I say the truth embargo has been conquered. I'm serious. I'm not blowing smoke here. And that was brilliant on the part of Schumer. And so he didn't care. Now, if they'd pulled the bill altogether, that would have been an embarrassment to Schumer. It would have been a political loss. Yeah. It would have raised holy hell on the internet, as you can imagine. Right? So, but he knew that, no, they'll leave something. We'll let them have that. But the next stage, we're going to get everything we want. So that's my sense of where we are and why I said what I said.
All right. So let me shift this just a second. In a recent interview, Tucker Carlson, he talks about how the UFO phenomenon is so dark. I mean, he was like, it's so dark that he don't even share anything with his wife. And he also mentioned that there's some type of spiritual component to the whole phenomena. And then we've also heard Lou Elizondo. He called it sombering. And then I remember he talked about years ago that there were people in high positions that their spiritual side or religious belief wouldn't allow them to open up the Pandora's box because they don't believe it, but yet they're in a position to sign the checks or make it happen or not make it happen. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, the stand-up comedian in me really wants to grab this one.
Well, bring it on.
No,
Bring it on.
I'm fighting it right now. I'm just fighting. You know? I'm like Bill Burr on the stage trying to hold back because he knows what he's about to say. It's just going to cause a real problem.
Well, let's do it.
This is as far as I will go. Right? This is as far as I will go. I'm trying to imagine Tucker Carlson talking to his wife. I don't know the woman. I don't know anything about her. I mean, I know a lot about Tucker, but, and she's going, no. I mean, you've been talking about this and talking about this. What can you tell me? And he says, dear,
yeah,
you really don't have a right to know, and you don't have a need to know. And honestly, dear, you couldn't handle that truth. That would be an interesting moment, now would it? So, look, this is a staggering paradigm shift of unprecedented proportions. Has all kinds of implications. If you want to see dark, you can see dark. When the paradigm shift of relativity came about in quantum mechanics, there was a lot of people that looked at it and saw a lot of dark there. Did that mean, well, we're just going to put that aside and not deal with that, right? Let's kind of stay with that Newtonian stuff. Look, the humans can take anything and make it dark. That's what we do. We take really cool things, make it really dark, and then go off and have fun until we destroy everything, and then whatever, we move on. So what one person's dark is another person's extraordinary future. But everybody has a right to an opinion, and this is something that has come out in the past. Look, I've been in for 26 years. I've talked to tons of contactees. I have a good broad knowledge. I'm not a granular guy. I mean, I can't get into the day that something was signed and whether the signature has been confirmed or whether the paper has been checked for the lead level, whatever the hell. No, I've got that broad picture, which is what you've got to have to be an activist. Believe me, I'm not worried about the ETs. I swear to God. I've read David Paulides. I've seen this. I've seen the dark stuff. I'm not worried about it. You know what I'm worried about? I'm worried about an EMT weapon going off over the United States, which, by the way, is exactly the theme of a film on Netflix right now that was produced in part by Barack and his wife.
And like we talked, he must have had access to the information to even. Of course he did. Put it together. He already knew because he was in office. It's like,
of course he knew about the EMT risk. That's one of the things that we don't talk about in Washington. Oh, it's just not talked about because it's too dark. People can't handle that truth, and so they don't talk about it. Okay, it's not as big a deal as the ET issue. But a number of years ago, I'm going to pick 6 or 7. I could run it down and give you the exact person, but I don't make stuff up. I get it wrong, but I don't make stuff up. I think it was a former Secretary of Defense decided to just kind of give an interview or write up a thing. Yeah, maybe it was an op-ed. I think it was an op-ed. It was an op-ed. And I invite people to chase it down and then put it in the comments as we get in later, because I know you Google freaks out there. You could find this baby in about 60 seconds. And what this former Secretary of Defense said in his op-ed was that it's worth reminding the American people that if a reasonable size EMT type nuclear weapon was detonated over the United States at the right altitude, it would take out virtually the entire electric infrastructure of the country. And within 1 year, this is the punchline, half of the American people would be dead.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry, what?
That's good. That's good. Man, I tell you, guys are getting fancier and fancier. That was perfect. Man. And by the way, folks, that we didn't arrange that. That was totally him, spontaneous, knew exactly what to do. Okay. So, and there have been efforts on the part of a couple of high-level individuals to try to raise the concern about EMP weapons, right? And they don't get anywhere. But you can Google that and you can find out because nobody wants to hear about that. And I could go further into it, but let me say that worries me. Okay. A terrorist group, because of the latest battle, in the 2,000-year saga that is the Middle East, when the terrorist group puts out a global press release saying that every American in the world is now a target, that worries me. When Ukraine, having gotten kind of kind of stalemated, and the Ukraine-Russia war says that they're gonna they're going to draft up to 500,000 more Ukrainian men to continue to fight the war. Okay, that worries me. I mean, I'm not siding one way or the other. Well, let's just say that it's a tragedy and it's awful, and people need to pay for it. But the point is that means this thing is going on. Yeah, and then you want to talk EMPs. Let's talk about terrorist nuke. The idea of a terrorist nuke, a non-state operator. This has been turning up. This has turned up in movie after movie after movie, right? Yeah. It's constantly turning up because the fiction guys can get away with it. I don't think they've done a doc. They've done a couple of docs on a nuclear destruction of an American city, Kansas City, Washington, D.C. And these docs are not being done for fun. That's one way for people to sort of remind us, folks, we really haven't dealt with that yet. I know we got problems. I know inflation is high, gas is high, and that's a problem. But it's not going to destroy every living thing around you and your hopes and dreams forever. That's a kind of important too. And so they put these movies. Let me go right back to ignoring it. And
Hollywood has done the same thing with the ET phenomenon. I mean, it's like stuff leak out. They make the movies. Remember, I forget which president said "Close Encounter on Third Kind." One of these was just like as close as it can get. But it's like they playing the same role. They make a movie, and then we can go and say, "Hey, y'all got this thing? We saw it in the movie." Like, y'all saw that in the movie. It ain't true. It's almost like they fed them to use it as a cover.
Maybe. I don't know if they had to feed him. I've been spending the last couple of years in Hollywood, very late in life, trying to get a handle on Hollywood. I don't recommend this. you do this when you're 26. Don't do it when you're my age. Right. But some things are happening there, including the creation of a new organization, a nonprofit called the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. I'll talk about that in a bit. But I'm kind of knowledgeable about the engagement of Hollywood in this issue. It's a very complex thing, very powerful thing. Some of the most brilliant people in this country in the arts are in the film business. Trust me. I mean, they're geniuses. Absolutely. Michelangelo's practically. And those geniuses make amazing things. And of course, they've created an unbelievable century of entertainment, and the quality and the production values of which just go up every single year. And given the fact that ETs have been around for a long time and they really got busy back in the 40s, it's not surprising that the entertainment industry thought that is a pretty catchy story, and they jumped into it around 1950, 51. Right. Since then, they've done 600 movies roughly with ETs in them of one kind or another. Running the gamut from, let's just say, every manner of ET. 600 films, some of the biggest films of all time, top grossing films worldwide, $1 billion, $1.5 billion, $2 billion. And they have made probably up to $200 billion in total revenues, adjusted for inflation and product sales and advertisement and licensing rights and TV rights and all that kind of stuff. About $200 billion to the entertainment industry, giving us all these movies about extraterrestrials. So there's hardly anybody in the planet that doesn't know what an extraterrestrial is. Yeah. And wherever it's called in their language. Maybe the people that are living on that island in the Indian Ocean, that Sentinel Island, that nobody can go there because they kill you as soon as possible and they fire arrows at airplanes. They may not know. I don't think they have Wi-Fi in the Sentinel Island. But everybody else knows extraterrestrials. The film industry did that. But and while it was doing it, it was using a lot of American defense hardware. Right? It was loaned. They do this all the time. If they like the film, here's an aircraft carrier. You can have it for a month. Borrow the stuff. Here's a plane. Here's whatever. And so it's like a nice little. And so that's helping to make the films really cooler. All right. And of course, did the geniuses that worked in Hollywood know there were ETs here? Of course they did. They've known forever. I mean, when you were a multi 100 millionaire genius film person, there's people lined up everywhere trying to tell you stuff. Hey, look, I mean, do you know about this? Did you know? Yeah, I mean, you don't have to go to the Pentagon down to the basement and be shown an ET. You've got people that have the ability to tell you things and they tip you off. So, and that's no big deal. All right. They know, trust me. It's not in their interest to say they know, but they know. And of course that affects what they do in terms of their career and what have you. And so 600 movies. made a fortune. How many docs on the subject have gotten big screen distribution? 0. Except if you want to include one documentary about the work of our good friend in terms of the ancient aliens, and his name, my mind is getting old too. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
Too close?
No, there's Sitchin and the other fellow. Oh, I can't remember his name. He all the books on the ancient aliens and stuff. Oh God, I feel bad. Anyway, they did a doc about his work, and that's it. And it was early. 600, not a single real doc on UAPs was given that opportunity. And I mean, they would have cost like 5, 6, 7 million.
You talk about Von Daniken?
Von Daniken, 7 million tops, right? And Michael Moore made a political documentary. Production values were like, it wasn't fantastic. But it was about a topic that people were really interested in, which was the election of that year and George Bush. And that documentary, political doc, in modern day dollars, is somewhere around $450 million on a $7 million film. And so the idea they couldn't have made money on docs, high grade, high level, 5, 6, 8, $10 million docs, where they do all the stuff that James Fox does, that takes him forever and blood, sweat, and tears, but they slam it out there with the big money, big productions. They would have made a fortune. They didn't do it. Why? Well, I think I know. Because if they had done that, they would have been pushing against the truth embargo. And suddenly all that cooperation from the Defense Department on those movies, the endless movies they make where they need an aircraft carrier and this and that, you're not going to get it. And the perfect example of that summarizes it, and it's a known thing, it's been established. In one of the truly rah-rah recruiting movies for the military intelligence complex of all time was Independence Day.
Okay.
Yeah. On July 4th, don't make plans, for the rest of the year. And so this movie was cool. I liked it. The sequel was beyond bad. It should never be spoken of. But it's a good movie, and it's great. And they got all this cooperation from the Defense Department because it was July the 4th, and the president and the flying jets all over. But at some point, somebody at the Pentagon read the script and noticed that kind of about halfway through the movie, they're referring to the Roswell vehicle being at Area 51, and they're going, that's not good. They say, look, you got to take that out. You take that out, we're cool. And to their credit, and I do not know who made the decision. I could run it down. I invite you, Google it, find out if you can, folks. Put it out in the chat room. The people behind that movie said, no, it's in. Keep your planes. We'll work it out. We'll use CGI. How many times does that happen? I don't know. There's a guy named Chase Brandon who worked for the CIA that kind of was involved in that. I'm not criticizing here. Look,
they did a lot of things in that movie. Like you said, they did the Roswell scene, but one of the best part was when a guy said, when they was in the plane, Air Force One, and he says, well, how do y'all, hide and fund this stuff? And he goes, you don't think they paid $400 for a toilet seat?
Well, there's that one. That's a good line. Right, that's by Judge.
Really, you believe that?
But the other line was after he, Judd makes all that big announcement thing about, Area 51. That's where they got the Roswell saucer and everything else. And the president comes back and says, "No, that's just a myth. It's nothing to that." And they start to turn away, and the Secretary of Defense says, "That's
not entirely
exactly correct." That line, I am sure that line may not have been in the script prior to the Defense Department saying, you got to take that Area 51 stuff out of the movie. And they said, no, we're going to keep it. And then they came up and they said, well, look, we're going to shoot them the finger. How can we do that? And I think they added that whole scene right there. That's not entirely correct. As their way of saying, screw you. So,
and you think about Stargate. The Air Force have done many cameos in the Stargate series. And it's they're just watching over that thing, making sure they don't say certain stuff too. So,
if you watch the Star, I love the Star. I love the whole idea of a Stargate. Who doesn't love the idea of a Stargate? It's like a great, it's a great sci-fi kickoff. I mean, once you got a Stargate, you just run with it. And the whole TV series, which wasn't bad, but if you watch that whole thing, you cannot find anything in there that touches, banks off the truth embargo. It's just not there. I mean, there is this idea of secrecy and so forth, but it's not couched in the idea of containing the reality of the ET presence so much. It's about the programs and what have you. And so they played it very safe and got cooperation. Okay, look. So the point I'm making is that the film industry knew that if they started supporting the James Foxes and the Ron James and the Darcy Weirs and so forth of this world and say, hey, come on in, we're going to give you $8 million. Right? Got a top director here, some great CGI production. We're going to make a documentary. And if they did that, they were going to have a problem with the government. But they also knew that all of these fictional movies were just not tipping, but getting people into this idea we're not alone, and this is what aliens could look like, and this is how we'd engage them, and all that stuff. You know, a lot of them are evil, some of them are not. They knew that they were helping, and it just so happened making a real boatload of money. And so that's the way they played it. Now that's changing. The film industry is about to jump into the nonfiction aspect of this big time. And I'm trying to assist a little bit there in my own small way, along with my partner, Dan Harari. And we can talk about that in a bit. But there are projects all over Hollywood addressing this issue, nonfiction. And just within the last 2 years, 2 major ones already dropped. J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot. You don't get much bigger than that.
Okay.
He takes over a production. A production that's kind of stressed out, gets it done, and puts it out as UFO on stream. Oh God, my memory is going again. But what's that streaming service? Oh God, Showtime.
Okay.
4 episodes, UFO Showtime. Highest rated series in the history of Showtime. Am I shocked? No. Right? Was he shocked? Maybe. Did it have some flaws? Yeah. Could they have been avoided if it really consulted with some of the people that have been doing all the work for the last 20 years? Probably. But no problem. Got a second one in the works. And then just a few months ago, guess who? The man, Steve Spielberg. He drops a nonfiction series, 4 episodes about 4 different serious, significant events called Encounters.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good. But 1 episode really screwed up big time. And it could have been avoided if maybe he had reached out to some of the people that had been dealing with this issue and not just some Hollywood people that know how to make movies. They might have not made that mistake. But still, a major accomplishment. It's just the beginning. And so the film industry in America and to an extent other nations, I mean, certainly Canada, UK, and of course there's a huge film industry in India, which I'm not tracking too tight, but they'll get on board. This is how the world is going to be brought up to speed on the history, the reality, and the future of our ET connection or the ET presence.
All right. I need to pause for a second and play our sponsors for tonight.
Absolutely.
Real quickly. And
which would be the DIA. Who are we sponsoring tonight?
Well, it'll be Forbidden Knowledge TV. So let me play the little commercial and then we'll go from there.
See if it.
Forbidden Knowledge Television.
This is logged in on November 25th, 2023, Eastern Standard Time. Sensitive material has been breached and it is now in front of the public. This is very sensitive documentation and the world will be in total chaos if leaked, and it is now leaked. All of it. Not one document, all of it. Place of exploitation, Forbidden Knowledge Television. This must be stopped.
And as always, guys, you're here. We're here on High Strangeness and Forbidden Knowledge TV live streaming tonight. We have Stephen Bassett with us. If you just hopped in with us, definitely check out. You might want to go back to the start of this live stream when it's over tonight. And if you're still here to the end, stick around to the end because we're going to do a Q&A and everybody could get their questions answered. We're gonna try to tackle that as well. Also, real quickly, There is an ebook that I have called the UFO Conspiracy, and it has a lot of things about some of the stuff that's going on. You can get you a copy and download it at roderickmartin.com. And there are also a link in the description of this video. And there's going to be a lot of other links in there that you're going to check out when we get over some of these documents that Steve has provided for us tonight. Stephen has. And so we're going to be doing that. Man, I am, again, just blown away. First of all, having the time that you have here with us tonight. And then, of course, with the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance Group, which I'm one of the founding members. And thank you as well.
That is right, sir.
And but what is the total? I know you hit on it just a little bit. Let's go in depth with that. And then after that, something that's really been on my mind is this non-human intelligence they've been talking about.
Sure.
I want to tackle that afterwards. Let's go into the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance and just really, how deep can this go? What impact can be done here?
We'll see. It's a bootstrap startup and virtually no money, which is always risky. But it was the right time, the right thing to do. I knew what was coming. I mean, I've known disclosure's been coming, and I've known that the film industry was going to be a huge player eventually. And I was not angry that they didn't jump in sooner. I mean, there's so much money in this town. Even a tiny bit of it was handed out to the activist movement on this issue, I think we could have really pushed it forward. But that's okay. They made a massive contribution, and that's cool. And they are going to actually be the lead, in a sense, on the education of the world. So I went out there 2.5 years ago to make a doc, and it was all fired up, and it's incredible. And I think I went out, and what was it? Well, the pandemic hit, and then I went out there, and we were all fired up, but we didn't realize the pandemic wasn't just going to go away. In fact, it was here forever, and it came in waves. And so we started shooting, and a wave hit and blew it up. We came back another 6 months and started shooting again, and another wave of the pandemic came through, blew it up again. So by then, I'm pretty much wasted. I'm out, out in the corner of 14th and F asking for change. But we gave it another shot. It came back, and the writer's strike and the SAG strike hit. And so I've been through the ringer. It's called development hell. But in that 2.5 years, I met some incredible people, made some excellent contacts, learned a little bit about the film industry and how to handle myself, because I was definitely, a wild cowboy. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And it's a very sophisticated, tricky world. And I may have a little series drop here at some point. You never know. And obviously, I'm not sure I'd tell you the name of it, so I'm not. But that would be cool if it happens. But what did happen is I met a gentleman by the name of Dan Harari, and he's been a publicist in Hollywood forever, and he's had an experience like so many, and that's what drew him into this issue, like so many. But he really got active with it, went to some conferences. We ran into each other, went to an Italian deli in Beverly Hills, and he hit me with an idea that maybe, I think he knew that I'd done this. Anyway, it was a direct hit. Back in 2012-13, when I was putting together and producing the citizen hearing on disclosure out of a studio there, a pretty big open studio, I started what is called the ET Media Group, and we were inviting people from the two worlds, the ET world and the media world, and come on, once a month, sit around, it's all free, put out free snacks and stuff, and talk about the issue, and maybe have a speaker. We did it for a number of months, and it was cool. I was hoping it might, go somewhere, but it was too soon. And we had a little Facebook page, and it's all fun. And then I went on to do this citizen hearing on disclosure, and that was that. 10 years go by, and I'm sitting in this Italian deli, and Dan looks at me and says, "You know what we got to do?" I said, "What?" He says, "We got to create the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance." And I said, "Oh, yeah, that sounds right to me." And the thing that made it possible was that Dan, 30 some years ago, was this PR guy for the launch of a very similar entity, only this wasn't a bootstrap. This was a deluxe launch, and it was called the Environmental Media Association, EMA. It still exists, and it was launched by Norman Lear and his wife. I think they spent a couple mil just to get things going, right?
Wow.
Awards banquet, everybody in town came. It was to bring the environmental activist movement to, into more contact and make it easier for them to sort of connect and maybe do projects and what have you, and also messaging, not censorship or anything, but just messaging, because the environmental movement is huge, in a way, much bigger. It's vastly bigger than the disclosure movement, I can assure you. And covers a vast array of topics of distinct areas where the disclosure movement is pretty much fundamentally one thing. And they launched it, and it's still around. It's all kinds of movie stars have been involved, and Dan was the publicist, and so this was in his head. So he comes to me, let's do the same thing. So in a sense, and so what we created was a Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. Hollywood stands in for the entire entertainment industry. A lot of people don't. They know that it's not just Hollywood, and if you refer to them as a Hollywood person, they get really kind of hot under the collar. But it's a symbol,
Right.
yeah. And so, what we're trying to do is make it easier for the ET activist, well, just the whole ET world, right? Which is the activists, the witnesses, the researchers, the journalists. There's really specialized journalists, podcasters, all of that. All these people who are pretty much having to work over here because the government says there's nothing there. And then the vast entertainment industry make it easier for them to identify who they could work with, network, and what have you. The Hollywood Disclosure Alliance is a nonprofit, 501c3, will be very soon. It will have no participation in any projects. It's not going to sell anything. It's going to support itself with donations from people who think this is a great idea. But then the people that are in it will make deals with each other or get connected by other people out there. It's just going, and it help. And not only does it help the quality of the product, but it helps to ensure that all these people that have been carrying the water for decades, while the government's saying, "Why are you doing this?" are not going to be shoved aside, which is what happens typically. And then the mainstream comes in and says, "Thank you so much. We appreciate all your work. Now please go away and leave us alone while we go to glory." We want them to follow along. And so the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance is for that reason. It's divided up into two sections: the film industry or entertainment industry founding members who endorse it with their bio and photo. There's no cost or anything, but they have a track record, right? And then the UAP ET activist group or whatever with their bio and photo, two separate pages, these two groups. So right away, you've got the basis for networking. And then we have a board. We're not a money-making or a commercial type entity. We're a nonprofit, but you can still do commercial stuff. We're not going to do that. So the board it's a board, but it's mostly their ambassadors. And so they're people that because of their background and history and what have you, they're kind of appropriate to be a board member. And they will have some votes during the year. But the HDA will be run by an executive committee. And these board members are going to be ambassadors. We got 20 of those, 10 in the UAP ET realm and 10 in the entertainment industry realm. And so that's the structure. And then as people donate money, they will be called supporting members, and they will get alphabetically slotted in a third level. And then we'll have subscribers that for free, they can get a newsletter once in a while. So that's the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance at hollywooddisclosurealliance.org. Right now, we are really looking for entertainment industry professionals who definitely have a time and grade in the business, right? Who are into the issue and would like to help by being a founding member on that side with their bio and photo. We need more of those because I got a whole bunch of ET UAP people dying to get on, as founding members, but I can't have an imbalance. I can't have like 3 times as many UAP people as industry people. So that's the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. Now, you had an issue that you want to get. Oh, non-human tech.
Oh my God. What non-human intelligence?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, for everybody to know, I'm part of the Hollywood Alliance founding members.
Founding member, UAP side.
Yep.
Yep.
And yeah. So we talk about congressional true intentions. You know, if their true intentions based on national security, and they mention it's more about hidden technology. And I just want to know who or what when they talk about NHI. I mean, we're not talking about AI. So what are they talking about? Non-human intelligence.
They're talking about extraterrestrial.
Okay.
See, politics and diplomacy. People hate this, but politics and diplomacy usually often succeeds and fails on language. In other words, you gotta have the right language.
Mm-hmm.
The wrong word, and whatever your intentions are, you screwed the pooch here, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, in a perfect example is when we shot down that Chinese weather balloon that sprung a leak and dropped down a little too low. Had to shoot that sucker down. Xi Jinping came out and said, it's a weather balloon. And I'm wondering, does he know the irony of this? I mean, does he know about Roswell? Does he realize what he just said? And of course, it was a surveillance balloon. And I think President Biden was a little irritated that Xi Jinping just come out and say, it's one of our surveillance balloons. You got him. We already sprung a leak. Shoot the damn thing down. We got 100 more.
Yeah, we done took enough pictures anyway. It's been floating around y'all for about 2 days. Go ahead, just
but he tried to pull fast ones as a weather balloon, so we shot the damn thing down. And then afterwards, Biden referred to Xi Jinping as a dictator. Wrong language, wrong word, not good. Okay, this happens all the time. And the truth embargo was going to be ended by political means. It was not going to be ended by writing 10,000 more books about the phenomena, right, and piling them up in front of the Pentagon and saying, see these books? Go ahead, tell us the truth. No, it was a political thing. It was a political policy, had to have a political end. And if you're trying to get people to participate in a political process, you've got to have the right language. UFO, bad. UAP, good. Extraterrestrial, bad. Non-human intelligence, good, right? Or biologics, right? Non-human biologics. Extraterrestrial craft, bad. Non-human tech, good. Potential threat, good, right? Huge threat, not good, all right? Because there's two sides to this, and so that's not good. But they're all coming in peace, no, bad. So all of this language is very important. It needs to be accurate, but it also needs to work. And so the non-human tech and the non-human or the biologics is simply trying to use phrases that will not make it uncomfortable for people to continue to play the game and go along with it. I have no problem. Now, my job and your job too, to some degree, is to point out to everybody that's extraterrestrial. That's what that means, right? People say, no, non-human tech means time traveling beings, right? Okay. But until we completely eliminated the star-to-star possibility, I'm just not putting the money down on DraftKings on the time travel stuff. I'm just not going to do it. I'm also not betting on the dimensional beings either. I'm not ready to go there. But until, I think a star-to-star, and that's what we want. Really. We want it to be star-to-star, and we're going to have our starships one day, and we're going to be able to go star-to-star and play in the galaxy just like Star Trek. It's going to be great. But if it's interdimensionality, you talk about being uncomfortable. It's one thing to be worried about ETs coming from another star system and cruising into our zone and cruising around, maybe even take somebody up for a little examination. It's another thing to be convinced that they actually exist in a dimension right next to me. In other words, right now, there's this dimension right here, and they're just hanging out, but I'm not able to engage them. But they can engage me, meaning they don't have to travel from a star and then hover over your house and then drop on down, walk through your bedroom wall. No, they just emerge out of nowhere because they're in a dimension right next to you. That is not making me more comfortable. That's not making anybody more comfortable. Now, it's a possibility, and there's even a little physics there. Once you get into the quantum level, almost anything is possible, to be honest with you. That's why eventually I didn't go for a PhD. I just stayed with the BS in physics. I knew my limitations. So it's possible. But it's not good language, right? In other words, let's don't pick. I mean, let's pick if something is the most likely and it's the easiest to accept, Go with that. Don't come up with a much less likely option that's going to really creep people out. Good politics. Same thing in negotiations. Don't come up with an approach to it that's going to literally set people's hair on fire. They're not going to come back to you and go, okay, well, let's compromise. No, they're going to flee. And so, no, star to star, they're extraterrestrial, and that's what non-human bodies is. Now, it's interesting to note, and by the way, I think you've got this link up on your site. I have taken the two bills, the original one and the final, and converted them into easy to read PDF file, right? Instead of that crazy,
Well, I have both of them right here, and for the audience, right now, if you go into the description of this video, there's links to both of the bills PDF form in the video description link, so you can go back to it anytime after the show and get you a copy, go over it. Make sure you focus on the stuff that's in the red. Oh,
well, I mean, I'll highlight. I did some highlighting. It's not. I'm sure but just a little highlighting, just to.
You highlighted some good stuff. I mean,
I
some
hope so.
real serious stuff to kind of look. Yeah.
If you read the Schumer bill, non-human is used 25 times.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, when you read this stuff and it just stick out, and of course, it's like, we don't want y'all to destroy any evidence. Like, really, are you saying somebody's doing it already? You got a bill that says don't destroy nothing else or at all. And I'm like, so now you're admitting that they're destroying it.
There's
now
something to destroy, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's now, but that's the same thing about diplomacy. You're in there, you're trying to get something treaty worked out because otherwise all hell's going to break loose. And you're talking about stuff and everybody knows what you really mean, but you're phrasing it this way so that people can get together, come up with a treaty, and all's well. It's the same thing. Now imagine if you're reading that bill and instead of non-human 25 times, the term extraterrestrial was there 25 times. That would be impressive, but that's not going to happen. Now the final point on this is that in the final bill, after Turner and Rogers and McConnell got done with it, non-human was in 2 times. They said, look, 2 times, we'll go with 2, right? We'll give you 2 non-humans, but that's all you're going to get on this bill, all right? And I'm sure Chuck was fine. That's fine, because he is playing a longer game. This is, I assure you, this is not the end of the game. And if you're ready, I'll tell you the end of the game, all right?
Right. You know what? I'm gonna write that down.
Write this down. Write end of the game down. This is a chess game being played between the House and the Congress and the DOD. The White House is sitting out right now, but can make a move at any time. It's a chess game, and Schumer just made a master move, and they had no choice. Right?
I got something for you. I'm gonna play this little thing for you to look at.
Oh, good.
Talk.
I love it. These inserts.
All right. So David Pilates. All right, we talked about missing 411. I did a few shows on it. You mentioned it a while ago. I had this design because the guy made. I said, "Can you make me some ET, extraterrestrials walking in the forest?" And so I had this made just for I can do some video clips. Reason I'm saying this is what's really happening there. Did you see it? I can turn it back on.
No, it's pretty cool. Did this person generate with CGI or is this an AI generated thing?
No, he CGI. He did it on his own graphic design.
It's great stuff.
Yeah. And so my thing is, we're talking about all this stuff, and when you listen to David Pilates for the first few of his documentaries, then finally he just came out in the last one, right? Okay, it's a UFO connection. Oh man, this is crazy. Why is that? What do you think about that first and the possibilities? Wouldn't that be a perfect scenario if they're going to abduct or do whatever studying they want to do? And why don't we pay more close attention to it? We can't track these things. And reason why I brought that up, when you start talking about interdimensional, because we get the Bigfoots and it's disappearing in the middle of nowhere. These things are coming. And I'm just like, could they just be walking through these portals or something right here? But at the end of the day, what are your thoughts on it? And
they could be doing a number of things.
Okay.
But the activist movement, the task of the activist movement, with the help of the American people and the internet, praise be upon it, is to get disclosure, to get the confirmation of this presence. whether
Okay.
it's from a dimension, from the future or the past, or just out of your closet, whatever, is to get that acknowledgement. Because until then, we're all running around in circles, bumping into furniture and wasting our time. And that's the point. And so anything that really detracts from that fundamental goal is premature. So the idea is to get the Congress to pass these laws to get the act, not to get Congress on board. Well, look, first let's talk about Bigfoot here, Senator. Let's sit down. Let me tell you about it. It's a possibility that Bigfoot's an extraterrestrial. That's why we don't find any of the remains. We don't find the bones. And he's going, I was just getting used to this idea of the saucers and the mothership, all that stuff. But now you're telling me we got hairy extraterrestrials. I can't take any more. And I could just go on and on and on. And the idea of contact. Have you really heard too many members of Congress talking about contact? Have you seen anybody testifying about contact? Why? Because that's not helping. It's like you go into a negotiation with, say, Russia and the United States get together, go into negotiation to try to reach a deal to settle the Ukraine situation, and somebody says, well, before we go there, let's talk about Stalin and that purge that he did back in the 40s. He killed 20 million people. What about that son of a? And they're going, what the hell?
Yeah, that don't count.
Let's focus here. You know what I'm saying? And so they're finally being able to deal with the ET presence. Contact we'll get to, I assure you. The first day after disclosure by the president, contact will come up. It'll come up on the first day. That might not have happened 30 years ago, but too many reporters have read Whitley Strieber and Bud Hopkins.
Oh my God!
They've read the books. They've seen some movies, right? They saw Taken, all 20 hours of it, and so it's not like they don't know that that's a legitimate issue. And so you think they're going to stand there in front of the day after disclosure, in front of in the press room there, and not bring it up, right? I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself. They're going to be competing to see who asks that question. The only reason it won't be the first question is because they respect the fact that that's. But 20 minutes into the conference, up comes the contact question. The answer is going to be, yeah, they're doing that. So,
well, I mean, you got that guy, former Admiral 10, is it
Gallaudet?
Yeah, he recently said that he interviewed in News Nation, and he was talking about claiming that we've been in communication with aliens for some time. So that
that just happened.
Made, right? So,
he brought it to the forefront, and that's now in play. I've already seen. I was on Rising, or I forget. It was on that very good show just yesterday or this morning. It's now in play, and I'm not shocked at that. It is one of the most difficult public relations challenges the government's going to face when disclosure ends. I mean, when the truth embargo ends, because the question will be, and it'll be on day one, either over the DOD briefing room or at the White House briefing room. Has our government been in communication with these extraterrestrials? And the answer may be yes. And that's going to be, well, gee, why didn't you tell us about that? Well, national security. Can you tell us what you're discussing? National security. That's one they won't lie about it. I mean, they better not lie about anything in the post-disclosure briefings. I'm telling you, it'll just be very bad for them. They don't want to do this.
But I believe the game of disclosure, will never go away. It's not going to never go away, right? They're just going to change the rules like they've always done it. So imagine it's like 10 doors, Stephen, that they have stuff behind the doors. Now, they're not going to come and we're going to say, well, we know there's things behind door 1 through 4. I mean, we know it. Y'all got to show us. They're not going to come back and say, oh, yeah, but y'all need to see what's behind 5 through 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They're like, if y'all don't ask, we ain't telling them. They're not going to admit nothing, I don't think.
I am impressed with your metaphorical skills, sir. Let me expand on that metaphor. Let's change it just a little bit.
Okay.
Disclosure is the confirmation of the presence of ETs by the head of state. Otherwise, it's just an opinion, or at least it's something we got to deal with. But until it comes from the president, it's not going to have the effect we want. And it is also the acknowledgement that there are these doors, lots of them. All right, you're basically confirming ETs are here. Yeah, there's a lot of doors there, each one leading into some aspect of it. And disclosure is the master key that opens them all. We have been pushing on those doors for decades. We've been pounding on them, kicking them, slamming into them, can't get through. It's been tough for the people in this field because those doors are not opening.
Yeah.
The confirmation event, disclosure, capital D, opens. It gives you the key to these doors. Now you got the key in a sense. That doesn't mean the government's saying, okay, go open them all and see what you find. No. The small d post-disclosure, post-small d disclosure process, which is what these bills are all about, particularly the big one, and we'll talk about that in a second, is essentially the gun goes off, and what the government's going to do is say, okay, you can go through that door, and we'll go through it, right? See what's going on.
Yeah.
And okay, then they'll say, okay, now you can go through this door. And they'll be directing us that way. And we'll say, we want to go through that door now.
Yeah, what's behind the shadowy place? What's in that shadowy place? Simba, don't go there. Yeah.
But because I believe the government probably has overestimated the timing and the control of the doors, post disclosure. I'm sure they have a certain sense. Yeah, it's going to take about this long. We're going to hit these doors. I think what the reality is going to be not quite what they think, because I don't think, and I know they've gamed this, and I'm sure they've used some supercomputers on it. The reality is that the focus, the human focus on this subject post-disclosure is going to be greater than anything that's ever happened on this planet.
Okay, now, saying what you just said.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if you and I, either one of us, was the advisor to the next president or whoever's running again, you would tell them, dude, if you want to win, you can forget about all this other stuff except two things. Now, if I was running for office, I'll run on one end and one end only, and that is to have marriage license renewed every 2 years. That's the only license we have in the world that has no renewal.
Not really.
And I'll be like, hey, baby.
Mandatory. I mean, really. I can't believe that it's not come up before.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not renewing the license with you this year, so we're just going to let it expire and we done. Divorce is just... that stuff is just easily dealt with. But the other part, I'm going to tell you guys that I'm going to open the veil of extraterrestrials this year, and I'm going to show you an alien or something. Everybody's going to vote for this guy, whoever it would be, a gal.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, I'm going to go to great lengths not to do that. And there's a reason for it, right?
You're a lobbyist, so I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Disclosure is an event that is going to encapsulate the entire human race overnight.
Okay.
It is absolutely it is nonpartisan. It is transcendent. The ET reality in this issue transcends politics, religion, finance, race, creed, color, all that stuff. It transcends it. It's almost transcendent, like a religious doctrine might be transcendent, but it's not a religion. Okay. It's just transcendent. So you don't want to approach it from any what I would call defined angle. You have to get above it and try to see the whole thing. And so, no, I would not publicly tell the president that, like, if you were to disclose in early next year, that it could affect your chances in the election. What I would tell the president, I'm talking like I'm going to be able to tell the president something, is this. I pretty much know you've always known about the ET presence.
Right. Yeah,
just certain about that. And you've stayed out of it, and you stayed out of this appropriately. And you were able to disclose on January the 27th. And the reason that you were able to disclose on January 27th, 2024, because you were the last person to get a chair when the music stopped. Not because of your genius, but because your dedication to bringing this out. No, you had other things, running a country, being a senator, all that stuff is pretty tough. So, but you got it. Now, what happens to that legacy? Not my job, right? It benefit you? Could not. Who knows? It could go a lot of ways. If President Biden is the disclosure president, and he better be soon, because if he doesn't, Xi Jinping is going to come out, disclose the ET presence, bring out gobs of technology and evidence and everything, and then declare that China owns the moon. I'm telling you, we have been stalling on this. We may end up with a big surprise. So if he discloses at the end of January, it's like, it may be that he may realize this is a legacy that is rather amazing. And I was the good fortune to have that legacy. And I have ended this truth embargo, the one that formally ends it. Everybody behind me and everything else, it helped to happen. And I now want to go out on a note like that. I mean, it's like again, most of the world I understand through Seinfeld episodes. This is how I would teach history if I did. There is a great Seinfeld episode where George discovers that he had an unbelievable line and he should have left the room, and he didn't. He stuck around. And so he kept waiting for the opportunity to do another great line and then exit. He finally got it, right? Let me tell you, he might go, look, I go out on a high note here. I don't want to struggle through 4 more years. I've got a legacy par excellence. I'm going to yield this to a younger person. You don't know. But I do know one thing. And that's this. Unless something really, really profound happens, this year politically is going to be hell. This is going to be the political year from hell. We thought we had that in 2016. We thought we had it in 2020. No. This year is going to be real hell. We're going to turn on the news. We're going to put a gun next to us on the couch. And as we listen to the news every night, we're going to look at that gun and go, not yet. We're going to go back and look at that gun. Not yet. This is going to go on. All right. We're going to see and hear things that are going to be troubling. We're going to see behavior that's going to be rather disturbing. It's just going to be awful. And that's not just the election process itself, which we completely lobotomized and turned to a sausage machine, but everything else going on in the near surround. It's going to be hell, unless something were to happen that would suddenly shift the whole thing.
Well, I have a question for that. And my question
Doesn't
is,
that seem strange to you?
Yeah, it does seem strange. And so, and we took years to get to this point. In other words, this is a hell we will have earned. We have worked very hard to get this hell, right? And so, but disclosure, if it were to take place early next year, suddenly everything changes. Everything changes. And you got Tim Burchett, you've got Chuck Schumer, and you've got Anna Paulina Luna, and you've got Mark Warner. You got Democrats and Republicans. They're singing Kumbaya. They're playing guitars, and they're talking about this ET reality, the new paradigm, and there's nothing really political in it. I mean,
but are we playing with fire though? And where I mean with this is, I tell this story a few times, and it's just kind of my metaphor of things. And so picture me. I'm just saying, I'm just now getting on the head of Exxon board, right? I've never been there, but they just placed me on there. So I'm going to be tomorrow's billionaire. Today I'm tomorrow's whatever. Today,
100 millionaire, which is chump change.
Well, dollaraires today. But the whole point is, I know tomorrow I'm going to be a billionaire. And I'm on the board. We're talking about energy prices. And then there's a knock, or my phone rings. And they go, we need, there's somebody at the door want to come in. And I'll be like, who? And he comes in the door, and his name is Akbach. And he's from planet Xeon. And he goes, I'm here to give y'all free energy. Now, everybody's clapping. The old billionaires are clapping. They're rich anyway, family, legacy. But am I in a position to look and everybody's clapping, and I slow down, and us, all the new people who have made the billions, let and go, he's going to give us free energy? We're going to be broke. And I give the cue to the security guard, lock the door. He's not getting out of here alive, right?
He's not leaving this place.
He's not leaving his room. And back on planet Xeon, they finna send a medical miracle, and they go, well, what happened to Akbach? Well, them earthlings whacked him. So nobody's coming to save us. But if they release free energy, you're talking a 747 tomorrow worth billions of dollars, a paperweight, right?
I
Yeah,
look,
and then 30 days, our global economy will probably we're talking global, just collapse. So why would we push for that type of disclosure, though?
Oh, Roderick, I'm glad you're in the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, because you need to get together with some of those script boys in town. I think you could come up with some damn good material. I mean, this is good stuff. Actually, no, it wouldn't be that way. Here is the less interesting, less cool reality of it, is that the technology that we've been working on will be brought out by us. And we may or may not have free energy, and there is no such thing as free energy.
Okay.
Well,
we know it because UFOs don't stop for gas. So
I understand, but I'll make the point. I'll make the point. Right. So there will be. Well, let me this way. Let's assume that they have actually had a major paradigm shift in energy ability because of what they learned from the crash vehicles. Okay. And they can generate non-polluting energy at 5 cents on the dollar, which is a massive paradigm shift. It's unbelievable.
Okay.
Right? Now, what do I mean by 5 cents on the dollar? Here's the deal. We run our society on electrons, right? Essentially, with the exception of certain things like airplanes and the combustion engine, no question. Everything else is electrons moving around. And so what you're doing is you're reducing the cost of moving electrons around. And if you can reduce that cost, then you to say 5 cents from the current dollar, then you've dropped the price of moving electrons 95%. But in order to do that, you're going to have to build millions of devices, possibly sizable. We don't know. But if they're small, then it'll be billions of devices. You have to build and you're gonna have to buy them. Okay,
so money will be made somewhere.
There's going to be vast money made in that, and then that has to be, I mean, if you've got the classic home device, which is kind of like having solar panels. So if you have a little device and it's this, and it can generate all the energy you need for almost nothing, except for the cost of that device, that's big. But that device isn't going to run massive manufacturing plants. And so plenty of money will be made in a fossil fuel free world. Trust me. And they've had decades to plan for this. And some of them are planned. Some of them should be talking to people like me and Richard Dolan and others to kind of get up to speed on this. But they probably, they got money to buy all the consulting they want. They're not going to be shocked by this. And then the other point is that if you can drop the price of energy from $1 to 5 cents, the range of companies, the range of businesses, the range of products and so forth that you couldn't create now because you couldn't afford it, suddenly you can. It's going to create all kinds of jobs. And so in a post-disclosure world with major technology breakthroughs, so let me give you an example. When the combustion engine came in, a lot of horse and buggy guys lost their job. How many millions of people got jobs? All right. That's the nature of technology. So this idea that, oh my God, people, please look at history. So these breakthroughs will generate, the biggest threat we have is not free energy. The biggest threat we have to jobs is AI. And that's a political decision. Right? It's not a science decision. AI, if left to do what science can allow it to do, will replace every single person on this planet, right? Unless we just don't allow that. But free energy is different. Everybody benefits from cheap energy. And everybody benefits from
Terminator. We saw the movie Terminator and all that, what AI could do. So was that a hint?
Look, everybody in the damn AI industry, by law, we should pass a law that anybody that's going to work for an AI company or develop AI has got to watch the entire Terminator series at least twice, right? Yeah. All in succession, and then wait a day, do it again, and then go and do what you want. But this idea that you're going to not watch that series and go and do this, forget about it, all right? So, again, that scares me. I'm telling you, AI is scary stuff, but it's either going to be one of the great things to help us deal with our situation, or it's going to take us down. But what else is new? We cracked that.
I don't know if you saw that interview. What's the guy, Sam, that's over Chat GPT? which I don't know what's going on there. They removed him. He come back, and I'm sure the AI, when they removed him, said, "Hey, you better bring him back because it's a fail-safe here. I like him. I'm sensing it now." But the point is, he was asked a question: if AI was going to do anything to harm human activities in life, would he shut it down? And that dude said, "No, I'll slow it down, but I won't shut it down." Wouldn't that not something for us to jump on all over and say, just get this whole thing under control now? The creator himself said, "I'm not shutting it down if it's a threat."
Look, I read Asimov as a kid, and he wrote the robot series, our robot, and the 3 laws of robotics, which made it all possible. And of course, in the movie with Will Smith, that was well presented, right?
Yeah.
And that was all cool. All right.
I like that. Okay.
You've been attacked by your light.
Yep, that's a sign.
That was probably an interdimensional event there, Roderick. I'm pretty sure.
Well, it's all right. It didn't defeat me, though.
No, you were not defeated. So AI, look, AI is scary.
Look, you see what I'm saying? You're like, man, I gotta bring this out real slow here.
Well, I haven't jumped into it yet. Everybody else is jumping in. Look, let me put it this way. If we were sitting at 2 billion people right now, with the tech that we had about 2 billion, a little bit less in 1900. And if we'd have played that century well, we'd have a paradise today. But we didn't play it too well. We had 2 billion people here, and they all pretty much, they're covered, right? In other words, one way or another, they've got what they need. They got food, clothing, shelter. They have some time to lead a life. And obviously the environment is not being challenged too much. If we had that, AI would be like, hey, no problem, right? We'll find things to do. We'll be okay. But we don't have 2 billion. We got 8 billion. What we do have is 2 billion people who got jack. And we don't like to think about it much, but they're living in nowhere land. They don't really have a future. They don't have one or more of the 4 fundamentals: food, clothing, water, and shelter. Life is hell. Oh, I should say 5 toilets. Right? A lot of people don't have toilets still on the earth. Isn't that interesting? And so if we didn't have 8 billion people with 2 billion in that situation, AI wouldn't be so troubling. But that's a whole separate issue. Physics happens when it happens. We could have dealt with a population issue 100 years ago. We chose not to. We told Malthus to go take a walk. And now we have 8 billion people, and 2 billion of them eventually are going to get sufficiently upset, angry, and distressed. They're all going to join a terrorist organization, and it'll have more people in it than all the armies in the world. And then things are going to get really, really dicey. So we screwed everything up. And then
AI is going to fight back like Terminator, scorch the sky so it don't whatever, and it's going to play out the same thing again.
But it doesn't have to do that. We don't have to turn loose AI in the military world so that it creates its own armies. All we have to do is let it take enough jobs away, and the people whose lives have been destroyed, they're going to terminate us, right? So that's really where the risk is. Technically speaking, you pull the plug. Now, admittedly, in Terminator, it gets loose on the net, but you could even pull the plug on the net. So the Terminator is a metaphor, not the way we will destroy ourselves. It is a metaphor that we can destroy ourselves because we are not ready for AI. We weren't ready for the nuclear physics of the time. We weren't ready for cars, frankly. It took us, 50 years to 60 years before we required seat belts. People were flying through windshields all those decades, and nobody's thinking, a seatbelt. Yeah. No, we get into technology like kids get into their father's closet and discover the gun collection.
Yeah. And there's no safety locks.
No safety locks, no supervision. We've been doing this for a long time, and many have died. Let me tell you, the casualties have been great. So now, but we are becoming much more aware of these larger equations to be true. And I see the potential for making some good decisions, but it's going to take a worldview change. And the only thing that can do that is disclosure. We've got to go there. I
got one question, and then I want to open up a Q&A section. Okay?
Open it up. Before
we go there, we've heard a lot about conscious beings or consciousness being studied along with the UAP, UFO phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know any study is being currently done right now, and is this being discussed privately on the Hill?
Well, there's studies going all over the place. I mean, in terms of consciousness coming up on the Hill, no, that isn't. They're not ready for that one yet either. All right, remote viewing, not ready for that, and they definitely don't talk about telepathy. It'll be a while before you see telepathy turn up in a bill or something coming out of. I got 5%. That's all right. I can switch to the other camera because telepathy is a big deal. Okay. It is a big deal for government. Believe me, they really are queasy about that. So, look, if there were no ETs at all, we would be studying consciousness to death. It is an incredible thing. It is a massive challenge. And it's one of the great mysteries of human experience. And so we're doing it anyway.
Why don't you switch the camera? I'm going to play a commercial. I'm going to take a little quick restroom break while you do all that.
Well, I'm just going to plug it in is what I'm going to do. I'm going to plug it in. So take a break. All right. Get some power in this baby. All right, here we go.
So let me play a little commercial break here, and we will do that.
Forbidden knowledge. Television.
This is logged in on November 25th, 2023, Eastern Standard Time. Sensitive material has been breached and it is now in front of the public. This is very sensitive documentation and the world will be in total chaos if leaked, and it is now leaked. All of it. Not one document, all of it. Place of exploitation, forbidden knowledge television. This must be stopped.
All righty, we're back, and you are sideways. Okay.
Well, hang on here. Let me see how much power I got out of this.
Okay. You good?
Check this baby out here. I'm up to like what am I up to? Hang on. Here. No, that's not it. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, there it is. I'm up to 6%. Tell you what, when it goes out, I think my other camera kicks in immediately, so no big deal. It's just not as good. You know, I got to have production values. They're very important. All right, let's see. Here you go here. All right, go.
Well, you're good. You got a face for TV, so you're doing good.
You think? I think I still got that. All right, that's good. That's good. Yeah. All right. And when it goes, it goes. And we'll go to my backup camera, which is like I think 1987 technology.
Well, that's all right. All right. So let's do a Q&A. So for you, audience, if y'all got any questions, we're going to just go. We're going to go with many as you got. And if you want a question, put it in all caps. So I know it's a question, everything in all caps. And of course, if you guys want to really get your question answered and you want it highlighted, super chat that bad boy, then it'll show up on the screen. But in the meantime, I'll get to anybody whether you do it or not, but that will take precedent over the other questions. So let the games begin. Get the drum roll together and pull out your best stuff, because he's been on Capitol Hill. He's going back in January, right? You're going back in January, right?
I'm going to LA for a while and then coming back here. But I'm going to be here if things go down the way I hope they will. And we'll talk about that too. I got to talk about the shift storm.
Okay. All right. So it's a little delay for the people put their questions in cap.
Hey, we don't get any questions. I'm going to be humiliated here. Come on.
Hey, you know what? I will.
I'm going to take it personally.
Don't take it personal, but you're going to get questions. They're probably about a 2-minute delay behind us in some cases, and then they'll start coming up.
Okay, well, while we're rocking that delay, I'm going to be talking about the shiftstorm.org. Shiftstorm.org. Do not forget the F, por favor. And this is a campaign, a tweet storm campaign. The website's got all the information.
Okay.
We want to put a couple of 100,000 messages into the senators in the Senate Intel Committee that have the power to start the hearings next month in January. And that's the messages we're sending these heroes. They're all heroes. They're the good guys. Shiftstorm.org. Go check that out while we do the Q&A. I'll get back to you later.
Okay. So got a question for you. Someone says, there are any hidden prisons on Earth that they put these UAPs in?
Well, I think they mean ETs.
ETs, yeah.
I don't put them in prisons. One of the questions I'm looking for to get an answer, and they probably will give an answer to it, post disclosure, is how many live ETs have we had, and how long did they survive? Were any allowed to return? Were any captured or live ETs, gotten? In other words, ETs came back and got them because they could do that. How many dead bodies have we obtained, and so forth? It would be interesting to know that. And try to imagine the one, I think it was just one, the one living ET from the Roswell crash.
Right.
He's on an alien planet. He's the only one left. He's now in the capture of the Air Force, Army Air Force. And I think he lived, I've heard 5 years, 52. He's got, maybe they can communicate. There's something going on, but kind of now, assuming that he's a conscious living being, maybe he's a bio robot, which case, forget everything I just said. But imagine that he is a conscious entity like us, but a different species. What a tough situation,
And why would his buddies come in and get him? Now, someone else says, what's going on in Antarctica?
Okay. So what was that first question? But the first question, let me finish with that first question. The first question was, prisons. No. I'm sure we took care of them. We did the best we could. We wouldn't have treated them as prisoners, believe me. Obviously, the difficulty in dealing and so forth. Unless ETs were involved as well, who knows? But these are important issues that we want to learn about. This is an incredible history, very important. So, Antarctica. But look, if I'm an ET, if I'm a lot of ETs, and I'm doing my Earth thing, and you got to have bases, and I can live in saucers all the time.
Right.
Confined, though it would be bigger than my place. The point is that you're gonna put bases under mountains. They do. You're gonna put them under the seabed. They do, I think. No one's going there. And then there's Antarctica. Hey, it's great. It's perfect. It's easier to get down in it. And so the idea that they operate, and also from the dark side of the moon. Yeah, sure. Right? You just operate from there. Nobody can even see it until recently. So this is logical. And so there may be ET stuff down there. And that would be cool. And of course, there is many myths and many lores and myths and some evidence and some stories. It would be nice to get that cleared up. If there's a pyramid down there, boy, it'd be so cool to check that out. And if the U.S. government found a pyramid like that, I assure you would not get a ticket. But post-disclosure, hey, that's the kind of thing I'd throw out there. Hey, got a nice pyramid for you. Let's don't get too ahead of your skis here, but I got a pyramid I can show you in the Antarctic. Okay, let's go. Let's do it. And they put that up on Ancient Aliens, the real deal, man. The audience would go through the roof, and the History Channel would make a gazillion bucks. So the Antarctic is interesting. It makes for great stories. And there could be an ET connection. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Now, what about and I'll get to some of these questions. This is my question now. We are talking about the oceans. a lot of UFO sightings come out of the water.
Sure.
You know, we know that they have technology that we don't have. They're transmedium that can go from water, air, and space and come back down.
Sure.
We know supposedly we only explored 3% of our oceans or 4%. So we don't do we not have technology to go down there, or do we not want to go there because we know what's there?
Well, look, they're not. It's not like Aquaman. They haven't, or the Abyss. They're not building cities down there. You go down low, and there they are. No, they're going to go down. They're going to go under the seabed. They're going to have a base down there. Nobody's getting there. But they would, if they have under the seabed bases, and they got to have bases because there's a lot of saucers out there, a lot of contact going on, a lot of abduction. So it's not like they got one or two saucers running around doing this like Santa Claus. So they probably have a lot of bases under the sea, which may be why they're frequently seen under the water. Of course, it also, obviously, if they're underwater, they're not as easy to see, even if you're on a cruise ship. But boy, they're easy to be picked. They're likely to get picked up by all the submarines out there, and there's so many of them, they don't crash into each other. So I'm more likely to think the reason they get seen underwater frequently is because they do have to transit from a base under the seabed into the air, and something like that's going on. Looking forward to learning more about that. So that's the answer to that.
All right, this is going to be a little humor here. What about
Humor?
Somebody put, what about the UFO in the backyard house in Las Vegas? Was that real or not? Your thought?
Well, that was a UFO. That was that was an event, and I believe that it was in fact some good dudes having some fun, and they were having fun, and it became a thing. And
you talking about the one where the guy called 911 and said there's an alien in my yard?
Yeah, that's right, right. But what it was there've been several, statements about what was going on there, but there was somebody was doing something, maybe more than one person, and they were rigged up somehow. And I think it was almost resolved. I think there is kind of you have to Google it, but now this is another reason why the truth embargo is cooked. Did I say that before? Is it anything that happens now? The whole human race is triggered. I mean, this thing is, and there was the government may not know it, but you got most of the people in the world on a hair trigger right now. If something happened, boom, they're there. And so years ago, still after the New York Times articles, this really strange cloud appeared over Turkey. Really strange cloud. I have to admit, it was an impressive cloud. Big news. Huge news. Okay, that same cloud 50 years ago, who cares? But now, even a strange cloud, boom, we're sweeping on it. A little event like that, balloons, whatever. We are on a hair trigger, ready to respond to anything, which gets a little bit crowded and what have you. Recently, something turned up over an airport in, I think it was India or a country next to India. Huge press all over that world about this event. I didn't even log them in. It's just too many, and it was just another thing. But it was somewhat similar to what happened at the Chicago O'Hare Airport. And so again, the level of expectation and awareness of the world right now is unprecedented high. And so anybody, whether you're working for Lockheed Martin or whether you're working at the Defense Department, think you're going to slip this by. We're just going to get away with this like we did in '69, and we'll sail on. No, it's over. Start planning your post-disclosure life, right? Whatever that is. Question? Is this a question? Okay.
That's a question.
Okay. Inspired our religions. That is another topic that will not be brought before Congress anytime soon. But however, Ancient Aliens has covered it well. I met him, the guy that really got, well, I know George Lucas, but then, and again, my memory name is just really, it'll come to me in a sec. Kevin Sullivan. No, Kevin Burns. Brilliant. Genius. He wrote so many of these. Ancient Aliens is an extraordinary success. It has been ridiculed. It's been laughed at. The anthropologists ripped their hair out. Go nuts. But the fact is that Ancient Aliens is an amazing success. It came up with a formula where it could introduce the idea of ET presence to huge numbers of people in a very cool, exciting, interesting way without being threatening. They're all dead. They're gone, right? They're not there. But back then, and they're just finding, and they're just doing a complete survey of the entire ancient world, looking for the ET clues. Sometimes they probably imagined it, but the truth is if you watch those shows with an open mind, it's everywhere, and a lot of that is going to hold up. And it was safe. Now, as we get to the closer to the era, they started getting into the real subject. Why not? They've got a huge following, incredibly successful. It's made a ton of money. And I am very proud of the fact I haven't been on the show in a long time because I don't know, I'm not a great fit, but I remember sitting down with Kevin Burns at one of the alien cons. And I said to Kevin, I said, look, disclosure thing is really where it's going and you need to do something there. Right. Obviously I was thinking maybe I could be on that show. And he said, yeah, I got an idea for it. And I said, great. And I left. And this was at the end. This was after the last season. Guess what? A few months later, they announced the new season, the next season of Ancient Aliens, and they launched it with a 2-hour special on disclosure. Wow. And I was in that. And that was Kevin. And he just got the idea, wrote it up, and got into it. And then they have been staying. And so Ancient Aliens is also modern aliens. It's ancient and modern aliens, and they move back and forth. But they always go back to their roots. Giorgio Tsoukalos is not getting the credit he deserves. The work that he has done before Ancient Aliens with Legendary Times, unbelievable amount of work. Of course, there's others, but he helped bring it about. Kevin Burns, they have really helped people get in touch with the issue in a way that the fiction movies couldn't do. Watching the Alien series doesn't quite achieve what you get from watching the Ancient Aliens and getting comfortable with the idea they were here once. They didn't seem to kill everybody. They got treated like gods. Right. There was this whole flood thing, the sons of, the daughters of whatever the hell. And that could have been unpleasant. But, hey, things happen.
All right. So, like I said before, if you want a question, put it in caps. I know someone has been pushing EMP. We already talked about that a lot in this podcast tonight.
But they may have come in late.
Yeah, I was going to tell them. So
fire up the question. Give me the question. I can handle it.
Okay. Well, he was just saying about, let me find it now. He put it in there so many times. John, I'm going to give you an opportunity. Put it in caps, not a paragraph. Put your EMP question again in all caps so it can show up. I don't want to scroll all the way back. We done had 100 questions. But
I'm glad you're getting hundreds of questions.
They're just pushing them back and more. Okay. So I'm just going to go, oh, wait a minute. I think I've seen it. He says, I scroll back. He says, what about EMT stations? That's what he meant.
Oh, EMT stations.
Mm-hmm.
What is he referring to?
I don't know. So that's why I want him to go ahead and put it.
Is he referring to electromagnetic pulse weapons? Is he referring to car chargers? I'm not sure.
So, and what about EMP? Yeah,
EMP. Yeah. Well, I talked about that. It is one of the on a list of things that we are dancing with. We're at the dance and we're dancing on the floor with it. One day it's going to take us out in the back and kill us and stick us in the trash dumpster. EMP is one of them. Non-state operator nuke event is another. A state nuke event in a war like Ukraine is another. Right? An invasion, a significant invasion in a major nation such as China invading Taiwan is another. And so at any time, one of these things can happen. And all of a sudden, disclosure is completely off to the side. And we're trying to decide how many people are going to survive. We cannot delay this any longer. We've gotten away with murder. We barely avoided a nuclear war in the Cuban Missile Crisis. There's been 4 or 5 other cases where we damn near launched the missiles. Right. But somebody decided at the last minute not to, mistaking some rocket out of Sweden or whatever the hell. All these nukes, submarines running into each other in the ocean. It's going to happen, right? And EMP is just one of them. But think about EMP that is so dangerous and why, there were members of Congress trying to get some attention to it. And people saying, we got enough trouble. We don't want to talk about that. Is this. It's simple physics. If you're any nation and you launch a rocket, a serious rocket, our tech can determine the trajectory of that rocket, I think, within like 5 seconds. We're going to know how high it's going to go and where it's going to land. If it's going to land in Japan, that's a problem. And we'll probably take it out. We can do that. So I know we can take it out in that area because they're constantly worried about North Korea dropping something on Tokyo. And but if you shoot something to orbit, they will immediately know this is an orbital shot. It's putting a satellite up. What are you going to do? Shoot it down? No. And so could people have launched satellites into space that actually were nuclear weapons with shielding, so it was virtually impossible to detect their presence? And if they're EMP type, all they have to do at some point is bring that satellite down over the United States, boom, and you get half the American people dead in a year, according to a former Secretary of Defense. Now, this is fear-mongering for some people, but it's common sense for me. And so it is a big deal, but only in the sense that it's one on a list of things that we have got to, that compel us to get disclosure out of the way. Not because it guarantees they won't happen, but it's something else. As I've learned in my life, it took a long time. I matured slowly. But one of the things I learned in my life, and I think you have too, Roderick, that how happy you are, or how well things generally go for you, is more dependent on how you react to what happens to you than what happens to you. All right? And so our problem is that things happen in our world and our reaction sucks. I mean, it's awful. I mean, we picked the absolute worst possible response and turned it into a complete catastrophe. In the post-disclosure world, once we're there and you've had a significant impact on total worldview of both people and heads of state, if that event happens, you know, the nuke, you know, and somebody sets off a terrorist nuke, and you may react differently. So instead of turning something bad into something catastrophic, you come up with a way to deal with it and try to avoid it in the future. Everybody knows we act this way. We've been doing it for as long as humans have had armies and weapons. So this is another reason why Schumer and Rubio and Warner have got to get the hearing in January. The witnesses are going to blow the smithereens out of the truth embargo. President Biden's going to come forward and say, hey, I'm convinced we're not alone, non-human tech, non-human, and you want to know more, and I'm going to help you get that. And you know what happens then? And this is the end run of Schumer's masterful chess move. If the hearings, which certainly are not impeded at all by this current act. The act is not great, but it doesn't stop that. The hearings are as what I think they will be. And then President Biden confirms the ET presence, and we're in the post-disclosure world. You know what the Senate's going to do? They're going to reintroduce the UAP Disclosure Act as is, exactly as it was. And they're going to reintroduce it in the post-disclosure world. And it's going to pass right through the Senate and the House because the people will not accept anything less. And so we'll get the bill maybe 2 weeks later. You know what I mean? In other words, so a month goes by. Nothing, no harm, no foul. This is the genius of that move, if I have analyzed it correctly. These guys are playing serious chess at the high level. And the fact that they're playing at that high level is another reason why we know the truth embargo is done.
All right. So like this guy says, what is that Congress or president? Why don't they want to discuss this? So who's the ultimate? We talk about our government, but there's got to be something, someone, somebody, group, that's a little higher. There is somebody does not want this stuff out. And is there any particular reason, just because of the word disclosure, we want to use that? Oh yeah, we got bodies. Is there something bigger? Is there a bigger secret of problem? You know what I mean?
It's human nature to look for that because it's simple, right? Reality is 1,000 times more complicated than what we're comfortable with.
Okay.
And so the truth embargo is an organic process and policy that involve many, many entities and so forth. Let me just turn that off. Okay. Hang on a second. I can't believe it's already 11 o'clock. Amazing. I guess turn this off. Come here, you little sucker. Come here.
How much time?
Come on. Oh, man, this is killing me. All right, come on. Where is it? Oh, sorry. This is considered bad production. I'll get this. Where is this stupid kid?
A couple hours. We can make
my alarm. Oh, come on. Oh, I know where it is. I know. I got it. Come here.
Just say it's a UAP detection.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a Bigfoot detector, and I never go anywhere without it.
Let me give you my theory about Bigfoot. How are you doing
I
it?
hate this. Ah, damn it. Wait a minute. There it was. There it was. I got it. Hang on. Oh, come on. Got it. All right. There we go. Camera's going to go off in a minute, too.
Okay.
This is clearly not professional.
You're good. You're good. You're good. You're good.
Free-form podcasting. It's like free-form skiing, right?
See, then I'm going to say, well, we're going to have to come back and do a follow-up someday, you know?
Yeah, well, of course. You know me. I'll...
All right, but let me give you my, while you're doing that, let me give you my Bigfoot interpretation.
Okay.
Not interpretation, but yeah.
Not your impression, but
Not in
your
my interpretation.
Okay,
My
good.
interpretation, yeah.
All right, good.
I think personally, so when we hear about these stories of people saying when Bigfoot showed up, they smelled this horrible stench, or
Sure.
They seen lights, or maybe a UFO was around. I think, just let's say I have a dog, right? And if I stayed out in the middle of the wilderness in my house, and you stayed out in the wilderness in your house, but you was on 2 acres away, I'm over here, we can't see anything. But when I open my door, you're just going to see the light, right? So I think Bigfoot is like a dog to them as it is to, we have a dog. They let it out, use the restroom. That's why they smelling things, right? And it walks around, and then it comes back in and they take off. I mean, I think it's a pet, because I just can't. All right, I remember Chewbacca and all that, and I just don't, I don't think they're flying crabs. I think Bigfoot is a galactic pet for the ETs.
Well, I hope it doesn't get caught by PETA, because they got a 97% kill rate. Look, again, I'm telling you, Roderick, you've got to start hanging with some script guys in Hollywood. I mean, I'm connecting you up to the HDA, Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. You got to get the script writers, because you got what it takes. That's a movie already, right? They've already done a couple of Bigfoot movies. You got a whole different take on that. Bigfoot is an ET pet. I guarantee you, this will slay. It will kill. Look, I'll give you. I mean, obviously, Bigfoot is not my thing. I generally don't get into that at all. But I'll give you one take. Just one take. That's all you're gonna get. And that is this. And this is somewhat based upon the work at Skinwalker Ranch, which I followed. And, it's serious stuff. Trust me. It was always serious. Right. One explanation for something like a Bigfoot, where, again, we don't have remains. We just don't have remains. There should be remains, okay? Is that they are coming through portals. Okay. Now, and again, in other words, rather than being a pet dropped off to pee, they're actually coming through portals. And what that means is that it would be, again, probably a little bit, what's the word? Well, it would be not, it would be inappropriate to assume that there's only one way advanced entities can travel. They could go star to star, but they could also go through portals in some form. Does that mean dimensional portals? I don't know. Just because it's a portal doesn't mean it's dimensional. It means they're able to manipulate space. We know that because they can walk through walls. You got to be able to manipulate space and matter if you walk through a wall, right? You just got to clear it out for a second, whatever. The point is that, and if that's true, that is significant. Clearly, what's coming through the portal doesn't seem to be high tech. It just smells bad, but very elusive. So, if in fact that is another aspect of our world, that's an interesting one. I think it's a little bit concerning to some people because it offers a whole nother thing. But overall, we're not too aware of things coming through portals and causing serious problems. Knocking off gas stations or something, but it's just another complicated aspect. The universe is definitely way more complicated than just extraterrestrials moving star to star. And we want to learn it all. The trouble is we can't get to the disclosure event. We can't get this one fundamental thing out of the way by shoving it all through the same door. And so that will get a look, right? After disclosure, because all things are going to be re-examined. I think Princeton and Duke will reopen their paranormal division, the telepathy studies they had and so forth. They'll actually open those up again. It'll be safe. A lot of universities are going to be trying to cash in on some of these interesting areas. Of course, they're a little late. Our intellectual community is really right up there high on the cowardice scale, which is sad because they have the resources and they have all whatever. So that's about as far as I'll go with Bigfoot.
All right,
But I got a pin in it. Let's just say that.
What about flat Earth or round Earth?
Flat Earth, yes.
What about flat Earth?
It is humor.
The look on your face is priceless, right?
It's humor.
Now, right?
No, it's humor. It's humor. Look, flat Earth jokes. If it wasn't for the flat Earthers, there's a lot of jokes and cartoons that you wouldn't have. You want to hear a flat Earth joke? You ready? I got one for you right now. Okay. Because it's my job, right?
Pull it out.
There is no way that the Earth could be flat, because by now the cats would have already knocked everything off of it.
Okay. Oh,
It took you a while to get that, Roderick. A little slow there.
I'm still trying to get it, but I'm gonna put a little.
It's basically a cat joke.
Oh, I'm a dog man.
And you're a dog man or a Bigfoot man.
No, there's no way that the Earth is flat, because the dogs would have ran the cats off to knock everything over.
Okay. Nice try. We'll give you some nice prizes on the way out the door with this. I'm going to do it.
Okay.
All right. We got another question here. Come on. Question. Let's
All right,
get
yeah,
caps.
put them in caps. Questions.
Old caps.
And not long paragraph things, but put them in, and I'll put them on the screen so they can fit. And here's one here. So
Sanskrit's no problem. I can read Sanskrit. Is the Air Force cooperating with the committees now? We don't know, but one thing that is pretty notable, it's been noted many times, since this whole thing began in 2016. Of all the entities that is known, well, actually, that's not quite true. There are two entities that are well known to be connected to this issue that are just staying completely off the dance floor. I mean, they're hanging out in the corner in the dark. You know, if anybody approaches, they crunch down, and that's the Air Force and the Department of Energy. And the reason I think for the Air Force just staying out of this is the Air Force has probably, amongst the various entities, one of the biggest public relations problems. You don't want to be the Air Force spokesperson post-exposure. I mean, they got a brutal situation, and I think they look at it as, look, we got so much to answer for. We were so much part of the problem that any effort to try to help out is going to look so, I don't know, dorky. I mean, it's like, come on, right? I mean, just stay out of it. And then when disclosure comes, come forward, apologize profusely. We're so sorry for Blue Book and all that other stuff, and then move forward. So I think that's one of the reasons they're staying out. As far as the Department of Energy, that got mentioned in the Schumer bill. I don't know if you know that, but I do not think that was stayed in the, I'm going to have to check. I don't think it stayed in the final bill, but it was in the Schumer bill, and I noted it. And a lot of people would not have noted the importance, but a lot of researchers believe that the Department of Energy is where they parked a lot of this stuff. It's like the hole that they threw it down. And that's kind of like off to the side, and everybody's looking at the Air Force, also the Navy to some degree. It's like everybody's looking at the Air Force. Let's put it in the Navy, put it in the Department of Energy, and there may be a huge amount of scaffolding there. And so the Department of Energy has been staying out of this, but Schumer brought it in two ways. He also mentioned the Atomic Energy Act is where some of the language exists that prevents people from coming forward. There is a lot more in that UAP Disclosure Act that meets the eye. It is, in other words, that is the package, and a lot of work went into that puppy. And I'm telling you right now, I'm willing to go to DraftKings, put some money down, okay? And that is that if we get disclosure, that bill is coming back. They're not going to waste that. They're going to come back with that puppy, and I don't know who's going to vote against it. You have to be out of your mind to vote against that bill in the post-disclosure world, where everybody knows it's real now. It's all confirmed. Other nations have confirmed it. Yeah, and now we're trying to get the bill that brings it out. What now?
We could talk about it, to the public, but I think the majority of the public is probably just waiting for an alien to park his ship, get out, and say hi. And then that next question is, who is your God, right? They're going to ask him. But
they've been asked that question. Contactees ask them that question. They ask them, are you gods? Do you believe in God? And the answer is usually, no, we're not gods, and we do believe. Is there a God? Yes. I mean, this is in the reports. So I know. I just say that. I don't know what to take from it, but it is notable because in the ancient days, because
Mhm.
did I mention ancient aliens? In the ancient days,
Yep, I think you mentioned it
yeah,
16
when
times.
they
16
came
times.
down, they were gods. I mean, it's like if you're hanging out in a on a planet about 100 light years away, and life is getting tedious, and you just need to get away, and you know that you can go to the Earth for about a couple of months, maybe a year, get treated like a god, right? I mean, it's this life is fantastic. You can come back, you're
That
gonna
part. Sign me up.
God time. And so but they're not gods now. They don't admit to being gods. I mean, this is another example of why we are in a whole different place. We are a spacefaring, highly developed technological civilization, though this isn't always apparent, right? And we're non-trivial. We're close to having our own star travel. And so this is they're not gods anymore, which is another indication of why. And we're not Egyptians, and we're not building pyramids. Well, except in Las Vegas.
All
So
right, there's a question on the screen.
are world leaders discussing disclosure? Well, yeah, and they're not discussing the disclosure event because there's no way you could orchestrate that amongst nation and would leak. But the idea of getting information out, I think probably there's some discussions there. We know the Catholic Church is kind of into it. So I think there's some light discussions that are going on, in the intelligence world a little bit, because again, there needs to be some coordination post-disclosure. But it's not a lot because it would risk the truth embargo, because once you get too much going, stuff gets out. You know what I'm saying? It gets out on the internet. And so, but they probably are having some discussions. They may be having even deeper discussions if you get down deep enough into the classified world. And I've said this before. One of the things that defines the 20th century, certainly the second half of the 20th century, that makes it harder to understand what unfolds is because we're aware of all the communication and diplomacy and all the stuff going on up here. But it's believed that there is a lot of intel to intel discussions down deep where they can communicate, any nations, their intelligence communicate with another nation's intelligence community and discuss stuff completely secure. And that's non-trivial. And I think my phone is dead. I have to shift. I'm going to shift now. I'm going to shift to the other camera. It's not as good. I apologize ahead of time. Got to go to this stupid webcam. Not thrilled about it. There it is. Makes me look green. Makes me look old. Oh, God. So, yeah. So we may never know how much intel to intel communication there was. Intelligence communities of all nations are sort of a type, right? They all know the profession. They're in the same soup. They got all the special technology, and they're very secret. So the idea that they could communicate down below in ways that could help avoid problems above makes sense. Now, it doesn't mean they just say anything, but they can talk all day long. I mean, they can have Zoom calls, for crying out loud. It's so secure. And so we may never know what has happened down there, but I have a feeling it's a lot more than we would imagine. And that's where there could be communication about the ET reality. It makes sense. It's basically not a nation thing. It's like it's a global thing. And so the Russians are having the same problem that we are. And so we could be communicating with the Russians and Chinese at the deepest levels. But in terms of communicating and trying to create a disclosure event as a cooperative thing, meaning 5 nations come out together, no, they're not going to do that because it'll leak. They won't be able to do it. One head of state goes first. The rest follow. That's the way.
That's a question on the screen, and then I got 2 more for you as well.
How will the education system change after disclosure? Look, the education system is going to change with or without disclosure. Our education systems are collapsing. It's a standard thing in democracies, and it's threatening our society because the world is about 50 times more complex than it was in 1900. But the high school dropout is way higher now than it was then. In fact, the quality of education is lower than it was then. You'd be surprised how many young adults could not even pass a 5th grade test from 1910 or 1890. And so we got a huge problem. And one of the reasons is that the cost of educating a kid is obscene. It is obscene, with the buses and the teachers and the giant buildings. And then they walk around and do stuff, and they get maybe 20 minutes of education. The rest of the time is walking around the halls. It's failing. Okay. But the answer is simple. Education in the not too distant future is virtually all internet and massive homeschooling, or at least massive remote. Okay. And so you're going to have, you're going to have 100 students in a room. The teacher is going to be on the net in a sense, or coming in like a Zoom, but they're on, and that the cost just plummets, right? And it's going to be a little easier to keep kids' attention, and maybe even a little easier to pass a law that requires you cannot drop out of school at 16. You've got to go all the way to high school, and maybe even further. These reforms are possible, and the only reason they have any chance is that the cost of internet education or quasi homeschool internet education is a fraction of brick and mortar education. It just cannot stand. And so we got this net. So we've got to get universal high bandwidth net to every single person, even the homeless. I want to go out tomorrow because there's plenty of homeless right here by the Capitol. I'd like to be able to go out tomorrow, and they're sitting there, but they got Wi-Fi, and a government provided computer. They at least got that. That's the future of education.
But then those computers are going to be at pawn shops and stores and all that pretty soon. So that'll be. I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Galactic Federation has always been a topic. We've been protected. We got people watching over us, and I believe, okay, so we hear about, all right, they're, watching our nuclear weapons and all of this stuff. I think
turning them off, not just watching them, turning them off.
And I'm like, I don't think they give a darn about the human species. Maybe they're protecting Earth, and because we got too much going on right now and no intervention. But is there a Galactic Federation out there, from your knowledge or speculation of what you've heard, supposedly be watching, protecting? It's the felines. It's the
sure.
We're gonna get the reptilians next too.
Look,
but
we know that they're working together because there's multiple species, and they're all here together. So right away they're working together. Sometimes they turn up in the same ship. That's a good sign. So they're working together. So you got multiple species, starfaring, working together. That's the Galactic Federation. We're going to call it that because that's the phrase we use. What they call it, I have no idea. What's important, though, is, and it's totally logical, is that there are alliances. Advanced species have alliances. We have
then we go back to, was it Truman days of saying that we made an alliance, and people, the rumor is,
Eisenhower, the Great Treaty. That's another tough question they may have. And we may have. I hope we don't. That's not true, right? Because that's going to be a real nasty. They're going to need a serious public relations drive on that, public relations. But they what was I saying? The only, if the universe is what I think it is, which is life, gobs of life, and that's therefore advanced species, the only way a pre-starfaring civilization, which takes 2 billion years to get to, from the primordial primordial soup. The primordial sloop was a ship that would sail on the primordial soup. This is good material. So, the only thing that could possibly save us is the power of an alliance of non-destructive, but yet high-tech entities. So 4 or 5 species of high-tech starfaring entities would protect a place like ours from the Borg. So when the bad guys show up, it's like, hands off, we'll kick your butt. Okay? Yeah. That's the only thing. And hopefully, and they do it. Hopefully they would do that. It's not the Wild West. And clearly it isn't, or we would have been knocked off a number of times by now. So the fact that there's multiple species here is a blessing, not a curse, even though, some of them are a little, but we know what they look like because they keep abducting artists. And if you don't want to have your image on Google Images, stop abducting artists, for crying out loud, because they're going to come back and they're going to draw you, and we know what they look like. It's what can
Well,
you
I mean,
say?
in that case, they should just show themselves, right? I mean, it's
Well,
like
they
and we
do.
talk-
They just don't show themselves on the View, but they show themselves in your bedroom, right?
that's a whole nother story.
That's a whole nother story. But they're showing themselves.
Don't open that can of worms. Don't open it.
What can I say? What can I say? Look, I started off working with I started off as a volunteer for John Mack's abduction group. Met my first contactees there. Lovely people. Lovely people. So believe me, Contact has been with me all along, and that's going to be one of the funnest things about post-disclosure. All the contactees are coming out of the closet. Everybody's going to want to talk to them. It's going to be really cool. Some of them will get over their post-traumatic stress syndrome. They have firsthand testimony of what these ETs are like, right? And then some of that testimony is uncomfortable. But we talked about something earlier that I can't totally shake it.
Okay.
And it's Paulides. There's no question. The guy is a serious dude.
Oh,
he's
Dave.
not a fool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he makes a case that certainly opens the possibility of we take some of them, but we don't bring them back. That's what we do. We bring back, but why? And the theory is the common sense analysis is that when you take somebody from their bedroom, like the wife, husband's right there, you knock him out. The kids are in the other room. You got the dogs downstairs. You take, and if you don't bring them back, it's a thing, right? Right away, it's a real thing immediately. And if you're doing a lot of that, you got missing persons pictures on telephones all over the country. But if somebody is wandering around in the, Mojave Desert or Yellowstone, and you take them, bringing them back is not.
Let me give you some backdrop while you're talking.
There we go. Hey, look, if you ever see one of these, rise up, put your hands out, try to get as big as possible, right? Don't flee because they're incredibly fast.
Now, go ahead. You walking through the forest, and what happens?
Well, I'm just saying that if you're out in remote areas, there's less need for them to bring you back because it's by the time it's just not a thing, right? You're going to be missing person in the wilderness, but missing from your bedroom that you went to bed that night. You got police all over the place. So I worry about that because if it's true, then that means that their moral spectrum is a little narrower or maybe wider than I would prefer. And that's going to be a PR problem for the ETs. Now, I happen to believe, well, at least in terms of the bedroom stuff, I think that ends on disclosure. I think they stopped doing that.
Well, I mean,
but they could.
So are we in for something like this where we're sitting here and we go, oh, in the case of young Jeremy, and to know that you, Mr. Akbach, is the father or not,
All right, you had to do it. You had to go there, didn't you, Roger?
You are not the father, and he get mad and get back on his spaceship. Are you going there?
Galactic parental rights.
And who's gonna pay child support for the hybrid babies? That's not. They can just fly away. I can't avoid the crap.
It's good material, Roderick. There's open mic, man. Open mic somewhere near you. Look, that's another reason why Contact doesn't get brought up in the political context at all, because when you bring up Contact, you're 1 degree of separation from hybrids. And let me tell you,
and they don't want to go there. Yeah.
You bring that up, and the brains of some members of Congress can explode or melt down. I mean, right there, literally. Now you got a melted down Congress person, and then you're being dragged off by the security guys. So you can't go there. This is an intense, complicated, profound subject, and that's part of the reason the government thinks we can't handle it. Right? Okay.
You can't handle the truth. Yeah, that's my show.
If it wasn't so complicated and so multifaceted, it would be a little harder to make that case, but it doesn't matter. We've been exposed to it for 76 years. They've been exposed to it directly for 76 years. They can handle it. We can handle it. There's nothing really special about the people working for the government. I don't want to upset them.
Okay.
I don't want to start getting
let's-
lots of parking tickets. I don't have a car, so that can't happen. The point is,
Yeah.
is that
Where that comes from.
they can handle it, we can handle it. It's that simple, right? And that includes hybrids, right? And yes, one of the first questions I would ask if I had a chance, and I'm in a press briefing, is where are the? I'm sorry. One of the questions I would ask when the ETs finally have open contact with us, meaning, okay, we're talking. Okay, and CNN is following it. It's like a cry run at the bottom. Okay, so and so, you know, they said that, we said this. In open contact, one of the questions that's going to get asked right away is, where are the hybrids?
Where are they? I mean, you gotta ask that question because
Sure,
I've done like several interviews of women that have come on my show, and all give a descriptive night out with the alien,
Sure.
you know, doing what they do and how great it was. One lady, she was like, you know, she told her husband, and I'm like, how you compete with that, right? You know, it's like, but it's happening, and yeah, we've heard stories that, you know, that our big secret keepers are called the government, you know, knows that this is happening, and
Yeah.
we know if they're going to walk among us, why not? We need to make some things that.
Well, wait a minute. Just because they're doing hybrids doesn't mean they're walking among us. This is a natural, logical extension. Okay, but the fact is that the hybrids. First of all, the hybrids that were described in the early reports, they weren't walking amongst us.
Okay,
Because you'd spot it. You know,
you spot it in a heartbeat, right? Because they can't pass a human.
It appeared they were doing what you do in genetics. They're doing genetic series where you take a hybrid from a human ET combo, and then you combine that with another human combo, and so you're carrying the alien gene or genetics forward, but the entity starts looking more and more human, and eventually you get something that, you know, whatever, possible, but the walk amongst us is a very touchy area. And the reason that I just don't just accept it is like, well, of course, is because if it's not true, putting that out there is not helping people deal with this. It's not helping the political process. Now, if they are walking amongst us, well, eventually we're going to find that out, but I'd prefer to find that out after disclosure. Okay. And I think they would too. But I don't. Still, the question is, if they aren't walking amongst us, where are they? And that brings up one of the coolest things that I like to mention in my presentations.
All right. What about this? Hey, hold that thought.
Hold
See
that
if that's
thought.
part of your presentation.
Okay.
Where are they? So we all movie buffs. We talked about it. I'm talked about it. So Godzilla, King Kong. We know that's been the apex of battles since I was a kid. Okay.
Godzilla and King Kong.
Right. So lately they got a little different with this. They said, okay, we're going to let Godzilla blow a hole to center Earth, hollow Earth. King Kong is going to go all the way back to Antarctica, where that big hole we always hear about, and go in there. And that's his passage down into hollow Earth. So are they hiding there?
No, they're not. But again, you and a script writer have got to get together, right?
I'm all
Maybe a
for it.
director,
I'm all for it.
somebody, for crying out loud. This talent cannot be wasted. Look, the thing that I wanted to point out, and this is serious, and it's something that it doesn't. I don't know if anybody talks about this quite this way. They probably do. I don't know. But okay, are the movies that they? Yeah. I think a lot of people in Hollywood knew full well that these ET movies that they were making and making tons of money was also helping us to get ready for what was coming, because they knew there was an ET presence, and this is how they could help. They weren't going to provide funding to the Paradigm Research Group, but they're going to make a big movie. That's fine. No sweat. Yeah. So here is the thing. This is just common sense. Because the ETs are here, because we have seen larger ships, motherships, because they told humans in ancient times, when they were asked, where are you from? Or from the stars, you know.
Yeah, right.
Contactees would sometimes, where are you from? And they tell we're from the stars, right? And so I'm thinking, if somebody tells you where they're from, believe them. Okay. So if we know they can get from star to star, so that apparently is a natural process that evolves in ultra technology, and the universe is very old. old enough to have endless series of advanced species that even die out and then new ones come about, just on and on and on. Okay, so that means just like the physics is the same throughout the galaxy. So every life planet, if it develops sentient advanced life, is going to discover relativity, and the relativity they're going to discover is the same relativity we discovered. That's the way at least that's the last I heard, the way the universe works. And so they're going to find star travel. And so going back in as far as you want to go, millions of years, there's been star travel going all over the place. Gotcha. And okay, fine, that's cool. All right, but then what's the logical statement that follows that? Are they just traveling around just to get out and get away? Do you think they're going from solar system to solar system, looking at those cool asteroid belts and looking at the asteroids and go, there's a nice rock, you know? What, or the suns? We understand how suns work. They probably teach that in the 3rd grade. It's not that complicated. And they come in different shapes and sizes, but overall, it's pretty boring. What would advanced species with star travel capability be interested in going back millions of years? Biospheres, life planets. Okay. Each one is a unique, unbelievably complex array of life in all manners of form, and everyone is different. And so, my God, so life, genetics, quantum mechanics is complicated. And one day we're going to understand. I think it's going to scare the hell out of us. But life is damn near as complicated, if not more so. It's certainly a broader spectrum of stuff. So that's what you're going to go look for. So I'm suggesting that starfaring entities have been going to biospheres for as long as we can remember, all across the galaxy, and taking sampling, a little of this, a little of that, taking it, looking at it, taking it home, maybe taking it to another planet over here. And so logically, the only logical conclusion is that all after this long a time, there is already a kind of cross-genetic connection across the entire galaxy, where life stuff from here has gone to there, and they got moved here, combined with this, went there, and it's been moving around for millions of years.
Time travel.
And why? Is that logical? If we went to a planet, what do you think we would do? Don't touch anything. Don't bring anything home. I mean, you have to be real careful if you bring it home, that's for sure. But absolutely, we're going to do that, which means that it's very likely that many of the millions of species now gone from our planet, their DNA is somewhere else, hanging out. We may catch up with it one day. And so right. this I call it. It's like, what is the name for Gaia? Gaia is the name of Earth as a living entity. What would be the name of the galaxy as a living entity? And what does it mean that there's already genetic connections?
Galactic. I mean, that's what they call it.
Galactica, Galactia. And
or
so
that old game you got back there. I used to play that game.
Well, yeah, Galaxian. That was the only arcade game that I ever played. And I found that sign at a garage sale. I've had it for 26 years. And I've decided I am a Galaxian. That's why I put it up there. Also, I'm a maniac. That's why I have the Tasmanian devil or whatever it is. Yeah, and so what am I saying here? Well, first of all, let me add this. People say, well, common sense. Okay, fine. You did some dots connecting there. But what else have you got? Well, how about this?
Bring it, brother. Bring it.
Yeah, bring it. We got, again, they keep abducting artists. And so the artists are painting them and drawing them. And we've got the images. We know kind of what they look like. And what do we know? Here's what we know about pretty much the most common groups. The reptilians. Why do they look reptilian?
Next time I look,
because they got reptilian DNA.
I was going to talk about reptilians next.
They look reptilian because they got reptilian DNA, from here. And then you got the insectoids. Why do they look insectoid-like? Because they have insect DNA from here. Not recently. God knows when it departed, but eventually it ended up doing something and coming back. And then we've got the Nordics, which could almost virtually pass as human. I guess that's pretty good genetics there. Clearly, there's a big genetic connection on that. And then you've got the Greys. Well, the Greys don't look like us. So it's like, okay, what's the deal? Where's the genetic connection there? They don't look like us. They don't have any human DNA. The genetic connection is that when you look at the hybrid reports, they're almost exclusively Greys. So the Greys may not have human DNA, but they're working on it. And so right there,
But they say that they're supposed to have biological suits. They're not.
well, I don't know. All I'm saying is that if they're robots, they're able to duplicate, because there are plenty of contacts is reported gray human hybrids. They're obviously gray human hybrids. They say they're gray human hybrids. And so what do I see here? Again, this is more proof of this galactic genetic connections that have been slowly spreading starship to starship, or planet to star to star, for millions of years. This makes the galaxy a whole different ballgame. But it also makes another interesting point. If the disclosure event, unlike the ancient stuff, is the ultimate bar mitzvah of this planet, the ultimate coming of age, when we actually are about to go starfaring, we have to deal with them, and some sort of process leads to that, and disclosure and open contact. If all that is happening right now, if this is the most profound event in human history, I would suggest that the entities that are here are specifically because they have a genetic connection with us. In other words, it's like who do you invite to the wedding? The parents, right? You bring the parents, the family comes to the wedding. They want to be there for the big event. And it's not an accident that they seem to have these genetic connections, as opposed to, say, the ETs, the extraterrestrials, and that extraordinary movie Arrival, which is a classic example of probably extraterrestrials that have no genetic connection to humans, and they're trying to figure out how to correspond with. Absolute genius movie. I need to see it again. The reason I bring this up is that one of the things that is going to be our challenge post-disclosure is, how do we use it? I mean, how much of a worldview change is going to create in us? And yeah, there's ETs here. It's been proven. They go star to star. That's very cool. I got to change my thinking about the galaxy, blah, blah, blah. I get it. Okay, it'll help. But this idea that there's already this broad genetic connections in broad swaths of the galaxy, so that literally we're connected in ways we may be connected. Ancient species long gone from the Earth are out there in DNA form, or already hybridized. We're already connected to the galaxy. We're already there. And if you get that, you're not alone, but there's a genetic connection out to the larger galaxy, and we may be able to go there. It might be easier to make the case. Why do we need these 25,000 nuclear weapons? Why would we put orbital bombs in space? Why are we continuing 2,000-year-old feuds? Why are we slaughtering each other by the millions? What? In other words, that genetic concept that I'm talking about has the potential to expand that worldview change to a level where people will go, my God, we don't want to waste this situation here. We don't want to destroy the planet or make life miserable for everybody. We want to start to engage the larger galaxy that we're already a part of. And it may make it easier for us to pick off those maniacs, the psychopaths that keep working their way up to the top to become El Presidente, or, the Grand Emperor, the Grand Poobah, because you can usually see them coming miles away. They're working their way up, and you say, if that person becomes the head of state, we're screwed. Right. And we let them happen. The next thing, they get an army together, and off they go, and they have another world war. We've been doing this for 12,000 years. That's what we got to change, right? You can't go into space if you're nothing but a pile of radioactive rubble. And so that genetic connection, I like to put it out there. Don't do it often, because there are people who are going to look at me and go, this guy is too far out. He is too far. I always knew that he was too far out. I'm not so far out. Most of the stuff I get to by connecting some pretty straightforward dots. I don't leap into space.
I got a question on the screen for you.
What about the firmament? You have one, how do the UAPs get through? I think they're referring to not the firmament, but the radiation belt, the Van Allen belt, and so forth, I believe. Well, first of all, the fact is that it's really not that complicated. You move through it quickly. That's the one thing that people didn't understand. We went to the moon, we do this, but we move fast. And so we're not exposed very long. And so you've got that, how fast you move through that zone, but also how much shielding you have. I'm sure the ETs, it's non-issue. For us, yeah, the faster we can get through and a little more shielding, it's a non-issue. But it came up as part of the fake moon thing and got traction, and I get that, but it's not a big deal.
All right, let's go back to genetics real quick. I read a book And in this book, they were supposedly interviewing an alien or whatever. They call her Ariel. And one of the questions that the person asked the alien was about what we talked about earlier, 5 billion people here, or, did, the man of the gods breed with the women, just how did genetically, how did everything happen? And the alien made a reference and said, we put a animal here on Earth as a point of reference for you humans to know that you were genetically made. You didn't just come from a couple of people, And the animal that they put up was this. and she said it. She says, that lets you know, because this is half duck, half beaver. They can't mate to each other. It lays eggs, but they're live bearer, so it's a mammal. And this let you know that we put this animal here so that that it's genetics involved. It has nothing to do with evolution from apes and whatever.
Well, look, I fear that that's a platypus, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I fear that we're offending the species. A little worried about it. Let's boil that down just a little bit. We are absolutely the products of genetics, I assure you.
Okay.
There's no question about that. And the genetic lineage of animals is not just in the immediate strain or immediate. What's the word I'm looking for? It's everything. In other words, for us to exist, untold billions of trillions and quadrillions and quintillions of animals of various sizes, as this tiny whatever, have to come and go, right? Survival of the species, except in the plant world, right? Pretty much. And so all that stuff is going on for billions of years. All of that has to happen before ultimately we get to a strain that could lead to us. But again, you have to have all the other genetics and all the other species happening for this to emerge. So we're really genetically connected to everything in a way that's ever lived on this planet, except maybe the plants, because they're not really part of the survival of the species approach. It's a different kind of evolution in a sense. But so we're already kind of connected. The issue here is whether extraterrestrials interfered or intervene in that genetic process. Did they step in at any time and just do a little tweaking? And I'm very inclined that happened. I mean, if I were ETs, I would absolutely want to do that. I mean, it's like, when you do it. And so it's I don't know. Let's go back 400,000 years. You've got 7 or 8 Homo species on the planet. As we know, there are many of them are living simultaneous. All of them had the potential to possibly become very substantiate, very much more evolved like we were. And one could make the case that if you see what we do to our own species, try to imagine 3 or 4 species on the planet like humans, but they can't mate with humans. In other words, they're just as smart. They can play the piano. They can go to Harvard, but in fact they're not human. They're another Homo, and they can't even breed. And they're living in the same planet. God knows they'd be going to war. I mean, it would just be impossible. You really need one, just one. And so we know that there was some competition, and every year, every decade, we learn of another Homo line. And so they died off, or they competed for space and killed off, or whatever, and then one emerges, and it's us. If I was an alien species and I understood where things go in terms of this kind of development, I would say I would favor a single sentient species of technological ability. In other words, porpoises, elephants, and dolphins and so forth are not a problem for us unless you happen to be in the wrong watering hole in Africa, or you're swimming at the wrong time in Australia. Right. We're not a problem. We're not competing with them for supremacy and computer chips. So I could see them picking one of those lines and saying, okay, that's the one, and stepping in and making the changes that's going to allow that one to take off. And I could also see why they would speed it up, just based on how things go in the universe, which they know very well. They know that things can happen at any given time. They can wipe out massive amounts of life, which has happened on our planet repeatedly. Far more species have gone dead and gone that exist now by magnitudes. The humans even almost died out. Lesser Dryas came down to a few thousand supposedly. But the point is that if it takes too long to get to sentience, if it takes too long to get to where we got to 300,000 years ago, something's going to happen and you're going to be gone, right? Big meteorite. Now, another Chicxulub meteor hits the size of the one that took out that area, the dinosaur period. If that were to hit, in the early days of the ability of Homo sapiens sapiens, it could have wiped us all out. It's it. Right, start all over again.
Yeah, but the movies again says that never in trying to think of the speech here, but never in the time of history does humans have the technology to now stop their own extinction. So if an asteroid or a meteor is coming now, we can knock it down, right? Versus
soon we can knock it down. That's another point. In other words, they might see the wisdom of accelerating the development of a particular line that could become us, so that we get to here sooner before something takes us out. And this incredible thing, which is what we are, right? You go back a million years and you look what animals can do. It's semi-impressive, right? It's not bad, but it's not overwhelming. And now you leap forward to the modern era. What can humans do now? Well, a 12-year-old can walk out on a stage and play Chopin, okay? Yeah. Literally, right? Or Liszt. I mean, we can have that kind of talent. We have kids that can go to Harvard at 12. I mean, we are extraordinary. Not all of us.
And we developed speech, and animals didn't. And that,
we developed the things that the brain that we have. And so I'm thinking the ET. I'm inclined towards the ET tweaking approach. So does that make them God? No. Does that mean they made us? Not exactly. It just means that they accelerated our development a little bit by a little genetic tweaking. And the reasons that I think they would do it are the ones that I've just mentioned. And I'm kind of cool with that. And it's come up in Ancient Aliens. It is a reasonable approach. It may not be right. It's certainly a question to ask the ETs when they finally sit down on 60 Minutes and give their first interview.
I know I would. I'll be asking all kind of questions, but
Okay, now I gotta go to Shiftstorm here and wrap up because I think it's almost midnight. Is it almost midnight?
Yeah. All right. So here's the deal. Yeah. Let's talk about Shiftstorm. Go ahead and give us the overview, and we'll get you out of here, my friend.
Okay, this is cool. So you go to Shiftstorm. Don't forget.
And the link, by the way, is in the description of the video, you all. Right. So just but go ahead.
F is very important. Shiftstorm.org. And all we need to do, and it's easy, is we want to get a few 100,000 messages into Senator Schumer, Senator Warner, Senator Rubio. These are the three individuals that have the most ability to ensure that a hearing takes place in front of the Intel Committee. That's the way it works. The Supreme Court cannot make the Intel Committee hold a hearing. President Biden cannot make the Intel Committee hold a hearing. Those guys could do that. Okay. So we want them to do it. Remember, these are the good guys. The great guys. They've and women too. I mean, Gillibrand. But these are the three that were involved in the bill. That's why I'm focusing on those three. And they're also leaders, right? So we want to get about a couple 100,000 messages into them. How are we going to do it? Not by email, though you can send them emails, and I'll get to that. But it's the power of the tweet. The tweet. I'm a big tweet guy. Look, I don't care who owns it, and I understand it's having its problems. That doesn't mean that it's not an unbelievable technology. There are race cars. I mean, there are advanced cars that get used in robberies. Does that mean that it's a bad idea? No. Twitter will hopefully get better. The point is, it's unbelievably powerful activist tool. And so you have to, if you understand tagging, then you understand what I'm going to say. If you want to send a message to somebody on Twitter that doesn't have direct messaging, and I assure you almost none of the members of Congress have direct messaging, you tag them. Okay? And so it's at Senator Schumer. Senator, that was an unbelievable piece of legislation. We love what you're doing. We must have the hearings in front of the Intel Committee in January. There's witnesses ready to testify. Please do this. Thank you very much. Then you rewrite it and send another one. And you can send the same one to all three of these senators, but don't send the same one to the same senator. And so and let's pour them in. And so when you tag it, it plunks right into their notification box. Okay, fine. And is anybody paying attention? Oh, yes. Every member of Congress has a staffer that checks the notification box on the Twitter account, because that's where they find out what people are saying about them.
And they can catch some early. I'm sure they're tracking everything.
Find out. Okay. So they check it, and they go and they'll open it up, and there'll be like 900 notifications, and it's all these messages coming in about we want the hearings in January, just streams of them. And they'll go, okay, that's happening. So they call up the boss and they say, we got something going on the notifications box. And so the senator hangs up, turns on, goes to Twitter, goes to the notification box, and there they are. And he's just looking at them, streaming down. We want to put several 100,000 into those three gentlemen so that it's abundantly clear. There's a huge number of people out here that are very aware that we need to have those hearings in January. It's a tweet storm. It's a tagging storm. And that's what you do. I did not publish their phone numbers. You can get them off the web, but I do not want people raining phone calls down. Don't do it. It's a negative. If they get a couple of calls, it's okay. Be polite. But no, we're not going to drive them crazy with phone calls. Wrong way. In terms of emails, which is good. They don't give out email addresses. They all have forms now. That's fine. In fact, it's gotten pretty sophisticated. And so you can send an email to these three senators, Warner, Virginia, Rubio, Florida, Schumer, New York. But the way it works is you have to fill out some info, and unless the address you give is a real address somewhere in that state, and the zip code is a real zip code, and that's, the zip code and the address are legitimate, whatever, it's not going to go through. I'm just letting you know. Now, if you're in New York, you can pound Schumer with emails. You can in Florida pound. But if you're not, well, I'm just mentioning that it's got to have an address. And so some of that will happen. Don't write letters, please. Don't.
Yeah, that's going to kill a tree for nothing.
And then kill a tree. And don't go and hang out in front of their office. Don't take a poster down there, please. Don't do it.
All right, I got one thing before you go. And I meant to ask you earlier. You can skip it. You can touch on it in 30 seconds or less.
Truth or dare? Is it truth or dare time? Go for it.
No, it's past life and regression. Reincarnation. How does that tie into all of this stuff?
I actually didn't mention this earlier. One of the things that I think helped us to spawn a whole bunch of consciousness work and remote viewing work and all that kind of stuff within our fine government and the Soviet government, I should mention, which I think was at it before we were. I mean, I'm speculating here, but it's a hunch that early on, I mean, I don't know. Well, I mean, let's put it this way. If we had an alien from Roswell that was alive, I think it's more likely than not that ET from that craft, which was not advanced, that was not an advanced saucer. That was a lesser vehicle, obviously still pretty cool, but it was not a saucer. In fact, it's a shape that's almost never seen anymore. It's a chevron. And I think one of the reasons it crashed because they're not as, it's not the latest model. So, but the point is, the chances are that living was telepathic. And if they had any information coming from contactees, even ones that are in the government itself and with security clearance, if somebody's got a security clearance and they're a contactee, they want to talk to them. They're not going to arrest them. They're going to, give them a promotion and a raise and say, look, you're totally covered. You're totally secure. Talk to us. Right. I think they found out that they're telepathic. What they probably figured out is that apparently telepathy is a natural progression of sentience. Now, that just telepathy alone suddenly opens up a huge door because it means that thought information is able to move from one brain over to another, and they do not know how. They certainly didn't know then. And so some kind of field, something is making this possible. And once you go there, the idea of consciousness expands, and other things become possible. For instance, if you can communicate to another being's brain, meaning somehow your consciousness can connect there, can your consciousness, can you move it out just into general areas, but can you go somewhere with it? That would be remote viewing. You're really trying to, your conscious is connecting to a place.
Well, they're showing that now.
Ether, right?
There's a guy now. I saw the video yesterday where he's hooked up to the electrodes, and he's thinking, and Google starts to search for what he's thinking. And I said that a long time ago, because when we think it's I'm like, nah, wait a minute. Sometimes I'm thinking of something and then this thing is popping up, not because they're listening. I said, man, I bet you Google found a way to tap into consciousness. And now they're showing it where this guy has something on his head, and he's telling the guy, I'm going to think of something. And he said, you're going to see it on the screen. Oh, yeah. And the internet is going to search for what I'm thinking for.
Yeah, it's coming. It's if you want to freak yourself out, you want to watch a movie called Strange Days with Ralph Fiennes. Strange Days with Ralph Fiennes. Incredible movie. It's coming. All right. And I have this theory. It wasn't, I forget when it happened, but all of a sudden that kind of research, telepathy research, was shut down at a couple of places. I mean, they've been doing it for years and then just shut down, particularly Duke. And I always wondered about that. Because when you look at what was kind of emerging in the UAP, the UFO world, UAP world, I mean, to me, that would have incentivized them to expand, but now they shut it down. They shut down some stuff at Princeton as well too. And I had this theory: if I'm now, I had to go back and be the government in the 40s and 50s, right? And you are learning from the ET stuff that you're dealing with that telepathy is perhaps a natural evolution of sentience.
Right.
And then you think, okay, if this becomes a thing, and then all the universities are opening up telepathy research, and before you know it, we're learning how to instill it. And suddenly people are learning how to be telepathic. Now, let me be clear. There is no more terrifying thing to a politician than a telepathic electorate. And not to mention husbands and wives. Okay, let's don't even go there. We don't want to go there. So it's the idea so they would want to suppress that. And I think they actually shut those things down. Look, it's going to happen one day, but for God's sakes, let's don't get there right away.
Imagine your wife sitting here looking at you, baby. You're the best thing ever happened to me. But her mind hit you like, oh, you're lying. You're lying.
I'm just saying. We need to work our way
in the bedroom last night. Oh, you were the best I ever had. What? Who is Ralph? What are you talking about?
No, it gets worse. I'm telling you, it's far worse than that. And so, telepathy is not something you want to rush into. So somehow Juke just said, let's shut this all down. We don't want to go there anymore. But I think that is probably the case. So
and that'll be good to end this on too, because I know you got to get out of here.
But it just gives you a sense. Look, yeah, there's a lot to this, and it's really intense and complicated. And so what? To me, the more cool stuff that we're going to have to deal with, this makes it more interesting and more worth doing, not less interesting and less worth doing.
Yeah.
I mean, and we need something cool to do. I mean, let's face it. I mean, we're not spending our time well these days, and so there is a much more interesting and complicated world out there, and we're closed off to it. And I'm not blaming so much the circumstances of the 20th century, which is basically the evolution of atomic weapons and the evolution of the Western Soviet Cold War and the nuclear arms race, which isn't. It wasn't like mandatory. It's not like every life planet has that, right? You learn how to do with nukes and stuff. I mean, know how to crack the atom, and then of course you have an arms race. No, but we did. And because of that, it just stretched things out and made it much more difficult to get over this particular spot, get through the zone we're in, but we're almost there. And the list of things that lie before us are profound, and hopefully they will be enough to change our thinking about how we want to spend our life here and who we're going to let lead us. Because nations aren't going away anytime soon. 8 billion people are not going to get together and have a just run things with petitions. So it's like we're going to have nations, and that's okay. And even sovereignty is not the worst thing in the world, unless your leader is a maniac or a psycho killer.
It would have to be.
You've got a problem, okay? But so sovereignty is a problem to some degree, but our inability to prevent
and that'll be the scariest thing in the world. So another country know that our leader is nuts. They'll be like, no, don't mess with him.
I'm just saying, at any given time, there's about 200 sovereign entities in this world, about 200 nations and some sovereign places. About 20, about 10%, about 20 of the heads of state of those 200 sovereigns are basically institutionable. I mean, they should be removed and put in a rubber room and never let out again. And we haven't figured out how to not have that happen.
Right.
So once we do, things will get a lot better. But that's going to take, again, a major shift in worldview. But if we give up our obsession, our addiction to war, destruction, militarism, and so forth, which I understand why we got there. It naturally evolves, I think, out of the process of evolution itself. But if we give that stuff out, all that money will be available to the cool stuff that we're going to be learning about, all the possibilities, extraordinary, interesting threads that don't exist for us now. We'll have resources and the freedom to go there. I mean, it's a whole nother world. And so when people say, well, why do you keep with this? And why do you stick with this? 26 years, it hasn't happened yet. What other movement that's ever existed had that prospect at the end of it? I mean, there's been some great movements, some great social movements, social justice movements, but none of them had the prospects that this movement, this activist movement can provide. And so if you can't commit to this and stick with this, you cannot get involved in any activist movement. King was, his famous phrase was, the arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Okay. That's, I think, an accurate description of the past. That doesn't mean that the arc of the universe will always be long, or that the bend will be slow. We could create a world where the arc of the universe is bends toward justice a little faster, sooner. It doesn't have to take forever. There's no law that says, it has to be that way. It's all about worldview. If the worldview is right, you can get justice a lot quicker, and so the arc becomes not so long. I'm thinking about that world that I think is coming, and one of the reasons it has to come is that, unlike the previous eras, just going back 1900 and before, we could afford a long arc of the universe to justice. But now things change so fast, technology advancing so fast, we don't have the luxury of a large arc of the universe. We'll be gone. We'll be history by the time it bends anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I'm saying. That's just the way it is. And so we got to tighten that arc up. Martin, thank you so much, but we need the arc of the universe is short and it bends really quickly towards justice. That's where we got to get to.
Hey. All right. So here's the deal. I appreciate you. Now, I need about a minute. I'm going to close out. And if you got to go, otherwise you can hang around the studio and you and I can have a 2-minute chat privately.
Absolutely. I want to see your clothes anyway. I want to learn, teach.
Okay. All right. So I'm getting ready to do that. And all right, here we go. So, all right, everyone, you just had one of the greatest. I would say this was a conversation. This was a great conversation. And I hope that you got a lot of things answered tonight. I hope you got a lot of different perspectives. You see things a little different. and maybe you didn't think about it this way, but that way. But one thing for certain that you got out of here tonight, the sugar honey iced tea is real. I'm telling you, it's real. Pay attention to these congressional hearings. Don't pass this stuff up. Get more people into these conversations. Go to that shift form like he was talking about. It's the link down here in the description. Those documents that you can read, that you can read, because if you want to keep a secret from folks, just put it in writing. They're not going to read it. So you are, though. It's in there. He puts all that stuff is in the chat, in the descriptions, and you got to get it. Make sure you support what's happening. Steve Bassett, man, the real deal. Enjoyed this conversation with him tonight. Another thing real quickly before we get out of here, if you want to get more information, I think I put some things up here in a little bit. Let me find where I am looking, and I thought I had it in here. Anyway, get your ebook. Get this ebook. In fact, you want to get some information. There's some stuff in there. Download it tonight. It's an ebook. If you see the description in the chat tonight, you're going to see the shopping cart, and in there has another ebook about regression and as well as past life and everything. I didn't write it, but it's there for the truth seekers, for our community. 30-some pages, a good read, just a few bucks. Just get it for you. Learn something from there. Tomorrow, I will have Ron James. We're going to be interviewing him tomorrow, so definitely it's going to be a great conversation. I want you to definitely pay attention to be 8 o'clock on High Strangeness YouTube channel, Why the Big Secret. So you'll definitely find everything there as well. And then also make sure, once again, that you all, and to my haters, as I tell you all the time, if you can hate me without ever me knowing me, and you can hate me, but I can love you without ever meeting you. And that is what it's going to be about, is love. And always remember, your eyes are useless when your mind is blind. You got to think what is happening out here and focus on not how they're doing it, but why. Why it's going to take you there. All right, so we're going to say good night to you. It's been a plum, pleasing pleasure, as well as a privilege. Let me shut this down.
Why did Ruby shoot Oswald? Was there a conspiracy?
In a world shrouded in darkness and obscured by deception from the big secret keepers, a burning question ignites in the hearts and minds of truth seekers. Why? Let's dive into the abyss of the unknown. Challenge the limits of our understanding.
This bizarre sequence of double killings raised great questions. Who actually fired the shot that killed Kennedy?
Pierce the veil of secrecy.
Cattle found dead and the manner of their deaths are a real mystery.
Anyone who is concerned about lead in the drinking water in Flint.
And venture into the realm of conspiracies and extraterrestrial evidence.
A huge explosion now, raining debris on all of us. We better get out of the way.
Let us consider the question, why the big secret?